Yes, welcome to our Mix What I Like. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jared Ball, happy to be your host. Please like, share, subscribe, do all the things as you come in. And I did mess up my own intro, so let's get this thing started correctly, please.
What I like.
Inexcusable on my part, but welcome everybody. Let's go. Come on.
Good to see you, Black Brown. Sweet Nikita, Miss Rhonda. Hey, happy birthday, Miss J. Hey, Rhea.
Yes. Good morning.
Party with me all night long. Say what? That's right, baby. Bring it to the front. Hey, Janine. Well, guess what?
Good morning. Oh, it's gonna be so much smoke today. People gonna be all day.
Well, guess what?
But I admit I almost feel guilty. It's a little bit of clickbait.
I get happy when you party with me. Guess what?
Oh, I missed that. I missed that. Morning, everybody. Welcome.
Listen, fellas, I put your picture on my mirror. Start to blush when somebody says your name. And my stomach is a pain. See you walk in my direction. I go the
this is definitely shameless clickbait.
I start to stutter when I speak. Try to stand on my knees.
Hey, if you're only here for the beef, go ahead and check out some of the other lives. I think Millennials is live right now. Go ahead and check them out. There's no real beef here. I'm just happy to see folks. Good morning. And Tume in the building.
Hey, Marlon, you sexy boy.
Oh, peace, Miami. Greetings. Thank you for joining us. Bronx in the building. BX. Welcome. Nah, no jab, Z. All peace and love. That was just clickbait. I do have the smoke. I got all the smoke for you today.
So sexy boy. Yeah. Oh no. When I see you. Hey Fox, hold me down, listen. Well, guess what? When I see you, yeah. Hey, sweet Samita, hey, get happy when you party with me. Hey, Janine, when I see you.
That's what's up, LA.
When
that traffic.
I get a little happy. Hey, Nico, I get a little happy when I see you. What? Hey, when I see you, yeah. Hey, Playboy, I get a little happy. What? Happy when you party with me. Hey, when I see you.
I mix what I like. But definitely good people. If all jokes aside, first of all, welcome, of course. But if you I know there's other shows, there's other things happening in the world, much more important. I will not begrudge anybody for leaving. Millennials is live, I think now. There's other stuff happening. Again, I'm not offering up. It's going to be some fun, some silly time, lots of smoke, and but nothing that if you want to come back later and just skim through the timestamps or whatever to find whatever's of interest that you won't. So in other words, you're not missing anything if you feel like there's other things happening, and there are. So I'm not mad at anybody, please, but if you are here, welcome, like, share, subscribe, support however you would like. I will say off the top that we are doing another sort of, I don't know, impromptu, unofficial fundraiser for Dhoruba. I don't promise to know the full update of his condition, but I do know that he is in some financial distress. And if we can be of some help, please go into the show description and avail yourself of the 2 emails there that you can use to either Zelle or PayPal. And I did mean to, but did not check out a test myself beforehand. But if let me just do this here. Let me just borrow from Geechee. And so if you can, please check the emails in the show description and PayPal or Zelle, whatever you can, to Dhoruba. He is in Ghana and in some financial distress. We all know there's no pension plan and retirement plan for political prisoners and Black Liberation Army survivors. So if you can do something, please do. And yeah, thank you very much. Please do, if anybody's happened to see, to the extent that there is a little bit of an issue, please check the commentary that he sent, that I posted the other day, that was meant to be played at the commemoration the other day for Assata Shakur. It was not played. Some confusion as to why, and but I have I think I have some tentative plans to speak with some of the organizers later who wanted to, I think, correct me on what was I did put out on Facebook that I thought that a tribute to Assata was incomplete if it didn't include Dhoruba. And there's a couple folks that would like to help me better understand what's going on. So when we talk, we'll see. But I still feel that way. I'm don't pretend to be involved. I don't pretend to be speaking on behalf of Dhoruba or any of that. I don't want to, just speaking on behalf of myself, that watching the event, seeing his comments, not understanding why he couldn't have been included in some way. And if there was a technological issue, I mean, there were any number of ways to include him. But again, so we'll see. But if you can, please do send something. And so there was just quickly, there was an Assata Shakur tribute in New York the other day. and the commentary that I posted from Dhoruba on my channel was meant to be part of that event. It was not. There is some confusion and discrepancies as to why it didn't happen. I don't pretend to be involved. I don't speak for anybody. I'm not. I just, as a civilian in the world who pays attention somewhat to these things, I've voiced my personal opinion that I do hold, that if there's a tribute to Assata, how could there not be some involvement of Dhoruba? So that's it. That's it. No other commentary. And so, but having been somewhat in touch with Dhoruba and some others working on his behalf, I'm made aware of some of his financial distress, as I said, and I'm wanting to help. So if you can, separate from whatever the event issue was, just if you can find a way to help him, the emails are in the show description, please do. And we'll see. And to the extent that forthcoming conversations can be made public, I will happily share what I can, and I look forward to it. But all right, so again, please, if you can support Dhoruba, the emails to PayPal or Zelle him are in the show description. And if you have any issues with that, please let me know. But as far as I'm aware, we're good to go. So please do check that out. Yeah. So as I said, I got a lot to get to today, and I admit, and I do want to apologize. I do in the moment feel slightly guilty because I was having a little bit of fun with some of the things happening in the world and thought, we need some smoke. The world needs some smoke, and I want to bring the smoke. So today, as we go through this day and the show and have some fun and some other thing, looking at some things, going over some things, I want to just intermittently, we're going to disperse the smoke throughout. And I'm going to start here. Let's get right to it. Let's get to the smoke. And apologies in advance for the clickbait. I can't even do this with a straight face, but, and yes, thank you very much. Appreciate you. Thank you very much. Thank you all very much. And by the way, so we'll also do the same thing. I meant to say that also. Whatever, if folks put super chats on this show or whatever this particular program raises through AdSense or whatever, I will send to Dhoruba as well. So one good thing about all the Google, YouTube surveillance is that it does, you can go into the studio and see very clearly what is doing what. So if you want to if you do send a super chat or something or a super sticker or whatever, just throw a little note just in case, but it should be pretty clear when I find it on what video it's come through from. But just throw a little note for Dhoruba, just for clarity, and I'll send it to him, and or just go into the show description, grab one of the emails that you find there and send him directly. But either way, my point is, so even again, more reason to like and subscribe and to comment on the video later, put this out, because whatever it earns through AdSense, I'll send to Dhoruba. All right, but let's get to this first round of smoke because y'all need it and everybody's going to get it today. So let's go. Let's go. And then, of course, I messed it up immediately.
Use some smoke. Hey, smoke. We gonna start off slow. Start off slow, smoke. I told you way back in the early 2000s.
Let's go. Everybody's getting the smoke today.
He smoke. I said, take it slow, smoke. Take the smoke. Take your time.
Come on.
I want y'all to get y'all camera phones out. This gonna be something you've never seen before. This will be something you've never ever seen before. Hey, Smoke.
Pay attention, Hiram.
Speed it up, Smoke. Put it in the bottle. Oh, Lord, this is a blessing right here.
It's a blessing.
This is a blessing right here, ladies and gentlemen. Would y'all look at his hands? JR. Put him in the water.
Put him in the water.
Hey, see, y'all ain't ready. This let me know this room is blinking with the gold stars. We shot like awesome, y'all. You hear me? Never check, y'all. Hey, give me another more shot. No smoke. Come on. Hey, you got the place of me smoke. Place of me, y'all. And I love it. Y'all love it. Hands in the head. You want it. What did I hear? Show some love. What did I hear? Jennifer Tony Ray. Rest in peace, bro. What did I hear? You are by yourself, Smoke. This man is so a blessing, man.
Woo!
Slam it in the party. Do your style, Smoke. Y'all make sure y'all put this on social media. Y'all don't forget we gonna turn it up second set. Hey, give me the Miss Piggy right here. Slam it down. Hey, y'all, everybody go to
Woo! And that's how you end the first set. That's how you end the first set. That was just the warm up. All the smoke today on I Mix What I Like. God damn it. That's what I'm bringing today. I know some of you was like, oh, he's going to get trifling and petty. No. You all needed it. I needed smoke. More smoke on the way. They don't know nothing about that. God damn. Man, let me tell you, I found that the other night at like 3 in the morning. I was supposed to be trying to get back to sleep. And that clip came up in the feed, and I said, oh my goodness, that's what I need. We need some smoke. I'm telling you, it's bad for me. It's bad for me. The pocket is crazy. And the heads, oh my God. Anyway, but more to come because it's all day smoke. Everybody's getting the smoke today. And again, check the show description for ways to support Dhoruba. Woo! Where's Hiram at now? Talking about pots and pans. Shame on him. Shame on him. But okay. Oh man, I am amped. I am amped. All right, let's get into some stuff here then. That's just the beginning. Come on, Hiram. You can't front on that, Hiram. Go Smoke. They used to say so when I was growing up. So he's just for just a little bit. Smoke is at least a generation behind me, probably more than that. And when I was growing up, my generation in the mid 80s, early 80s, it was Go Mickey, who was still to me the he was like the legend. And then, like you said there, starting around the early 2000s, at least for me, started hearing about, these Northeast Groovers and this Smoke Cat. And I don't think I've ever seen anybody that can move faster than that. And you're going to see more. So, and that's just an end of the first set. That was just yeah. And definitely, I have to go catch up to this. I missed it because I was at my baby girl's graduation. But I'm definitely going to check out Millennials with Hiram talking Scarface, and then the live that they have going on now. I'll be checking that out as well. All right. And as I said, again, folks, I'm not going to be adding much depth to your news and political analysis today. There's a lot of horrific stuff going on in the world, a lot of madness, a lot of insanity, a lot of trifling behavior. So if I don't begrudge anyone. The clickbaiting is done. You see the smoke I'm talking about. That's all the smoke there's going to be. There's nothing serious, too heavy happening here. So feel free to come back and check things out later. Otherwise, let's have a little bit of fun here. So I saw this morning. So we all know that well, just in case, so some of the things I am going to get into, I'm going to start here in a minute with no particular order. Some more reverberating nonsense from the recent Kevin Hart roast. We're going to be talking about the PeterThiel EnhancedGames, which is both spooky and funny. We're going to be talking about the recent episode of Brokeish on Black Liberation Media featuring my homegirl, ReneeJohnston. We're going to be talking about, belatedly, because I missed the when someone sent this to me a couple of months ago, the recent article from Forbes talking about the Compton capitalist, DrDre. We're going to check in on more Black Liberation Media with Dare to Struggle, because they talk to my favorite student I never had. And then I'm going to show you quickly how, in fact, I'm going to show you. Did you all see how South Park I don't know if you all caught this a couple years ago, but South Park understands George Jackson. Did you all know that South Park understands George Jackson?
The only true power is violence.
Yeah.
A little bit more on HBCUs. We are going to talk about the film Distinguished Gentleman, Eddie Murphy's underrated film. A little bit about DavidBanner and CamNewton. There's some things that I've been wrong about that I have to correct. So we'll deal with that as well. And a couple financial literacy clips to have some fun with. And I don't think I'm going to get to this today, but there was a Henry Louis Gates interview that I thought we'd watch together. I haven't watched it yet. I don't know if we'll have time for that today, and then a clip about African liberation is ownership. I don't know if you knew that. Yeah, you didn't know South Park is revolutionary.
The only true power is violence.
Yeah.
My spring semester wrapped up, but my first summer session started. So we have I have a clip from how I have a clip actually from one of my meetings with with a student that wrapped up the semester. It was unfortunate, but I'm teaching so many classes that some of these students try to take advantage. So let me just do this now. I'll just show you the clip now.
My office hours are from. My office hours are from.
9 to 5. You can't just roll up on me whenever you want. Have office hours. Got to appreciate the office hours. You know.
Is JayZ in class today? JayZ, are you here? Oh, yes, you are.
All right. Okay. So I saw this. I will put all of these clips in the links in the show description. I have not yet. The only thing in there right now are the emails you can use to support Dhoruba. Yeah, I'm on a 3-1-1-5-3-4. That's my teaching schedule for the next year, for the summer and next year. Oh man, I'm blurry. Oh man, that's messed up. Yeah, why is it doing that? That's messed up. StreamYard. Why are you doing me like this? I got the Ethernet cord plugged in. I got stuff closed off. Oh man, that's upsetting. I got the rebooted computer. That should not be happening at all. I got all the internets. Too much smoke. Yeah, exactly. Damn. I really do not like that. StreamYard, why are you doing me like this? StreamYard, why are you doing me like this? Because I got stuff to show. We got stuff to look at. I can't be out here blurry the whole time. And I'm steady blurry. Oh, wow. Wow. I apologize, everybody. I really don't like that. And I've done really all that I can do to prevent that from happening. I do not understand. It should not be happening at all. The clips are clear. Yeah, but I should be clear. It's my show. It's my show. You should be able to see me. But, oh, well, we will proceed. We will proceed. And if I am blurry, as I apparently still am, this is just a mess. All right, I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to try to reboot and come right back. And let's give that a shot. Let's see if that works. Hold tight. Let me do this. Let's see if this works here. Can I do All right, give me 1 second. Let me see if I could try that. Apologies, everybody. I'll be right back. All right, let's see if that helped, because the violence in the chat, so I came with the jokes about the smoke, but the chat is super violent. Look at the violence in the chat. Where was the other one? Where was the other one? Yeah, look at the violence in the chat. That is just crazy. I came with the peace, and it's just violence. That's not the smoke I meant. Exactly. It's just so rude. All right. I think that helped. Let's hope that helps. But okay. All right. Let me get everything pulled back up on the thing here so I can show you a little bit of, again, I will put the clips. They're not there yet. So from the Working Man podcast, ShaneGillis destroys DrUmarJohnson after brutal insult. So as I started to say a minute ago, the Kevin Hart Netflix roast, we've talked about here, I think a little bit on EYL, but there were and about how Kevin Hart, you know, allowed for white comics to make these racist jokes. And then Kevin Hart has gone on this defense tour lately, basically, you know, on giving interviews defending his decision and the free speech of the comics and the choices he made. He was fully and then Umar came out and of course condemned Kevin Hart, and I would agree with him on this. I think Kevin Hart was wrong for all of that, to allow that and support that and encourage that and not condemn that kind of behavior, and to, you know, but I admit, when I watched this clip here, I'm only going to play a little bit of it, I admit to laughing, but with some sadness, because while I agree with, you know, Umar on the Kevin Hart issue, I'm obviously not in agreement with a lot of his behavior around the school. And it was unfortunate. I did not know how much these white racist comics pay attention to Dr. Umar. So you can see the Working Man podcast,
WhatsApp, my email, you name it, is
here talking about how, you know, where Umar is saying he heard about the Kevin Hart thing and offers up his critique and talks bad about the racists. And he said he calls ShaneGillis a Neanderthal. And ShaneGillis here is this very popular white comic, the one sitting, I don't know, facing us to the right with the white ball cap. And I've never seen his work. I've only seen clips of a couple of interviews and stuff like that. But as the Working Man podcast wants to point out, this guy had some wild stuff. He and his buddy here had a lot to say about Umar and what Umar should and should not be focused on.
About the goddamn
Dr. Umar called me a fucking Neanderthal.
What?
Dr. Umar called me a Neanderthal.
Tell him you want to see the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy open, and then you'll talk. I'm done. Yeah, I'm done. I'm done.
Salute to his editing on that. That was funny.
You know,
and I agree, you know, so I want you, I want you to see his discussion. I'm just going to play a little bit more of this. So I'm not going to step all over Working Man's podcast here, but that was fun. That was good editing. I like that.
Watch the roast.
I like that edit. Let me just move ahead a little bit more from
in there. Hilarious.
I was all right with it.
Yeah. Fucking kind of.
I don't know if he's trying to be funny. If he's actually upset, I apologize to Dr. Umar.
I think he's smart. He's a smart guy. I think he knows what plays.
Probably edit this out, but I was thinking about purchasing his school and naming it the Robert E. Lee School for Whites Only.
Wow.
Bruh, you had the schools in 2000.
Wow. So as the Working Man podcast points out, like, they apparently pay attention to Umar. Like, they know the name of his school. They know how long he's been struggling with it. They know about some of his commentary. They apparently pay attention to they actually seem to watch Umar.
Academy.
What about School for the Aztec School for the Lads?
Aztec School for the Lads would go crazy.
That'd be tight.
I think making it, hold on, the Robert E. Lee, Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon's School for Higher Learning, and then actually dumping a ton of money in it and making it really successful and actually helping the community.
You see that?
Again, salute to Working Man for the edits and the jokes, but that's crazy. And by the way, again, Ronald Reagan died during my wedding, and we raised a glass. Just like to remind of that whenever we hear a reference. But that just a little bit more here. There was one more. I think there was one more thing I thought that they said.
I mean, you got time to do all. I mean, that's the most you even had to worry about.
Hold on.
It's never open.
It's a good bit.
I just want to see it open, man. I'm not trying to break the guy's balls. I've been hearing about the school for a while. I'm like, oh, that's
yeah. What
nice.
happened with the school?
It's never open. It's been fucking 10 years.
Gotta open the school.
It's got to open the school. I mean, especially before he starts coming at,
Neanderthals.
He shouldn't even watching the roast. Get the school going, bro.
True.
What the hell are you doing? Get the fuck. Damn, man.
So yeah, let me see. There was
Even though we still really don't know what. Okay, man, I'm talking about.
Should be Dr. Umar should like me, dude. He should hate you guys. What the fuck?
True. I wasn't even thinking of my own sins. Damn. And
hold on. What did he just?
He goes. True.
Yeah.
But somebody. Snow Bunny.
Oh yeah, he would.
Sorry, Nate. But somebody.
Also, right back at you.
True.
You guys are both. Dr. Umar should like me, dude.
See one more. I think was that it.
Well, he did post club guest. One of my favorite Breakfast Club guests.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He's amazing. So
I've never really seen him do anything I didn't think was awesome. Every single time I see him, I go, "Oh fuck yeah!"
I have the same thing for the honorable whatchamacallit, Mr. Farrakhan. I fucking dude. I love. Okay.
I don't know. I like I said, I don't have anything meaningful to say about that. I admit, I thought it was sadly funny that they're able to make fun of these folks who I don't think. So hearing one of my 00 African comrades make this point, I don't think Umar, while I may not be on Dr. Umar's team per se, I do think that there has been a cottage industry that has grown up making fun of him that I think doesn't help. But I just admit, I through the Working Man's podcast edits and commentary, I laughed at some of this with the idea that the performance of Black radicalism has in many cases gotten so bad that it can be lampooned. And then to hear that these white folks like watching The Breakfast Club and like watching Umar on The Breakfast Club, who proudly likes to remind us he's their best guest. Somewhere in there says something about my own criticism of The Breakfast Club and those outlets and what they're doing. But yeah, I'll put the link again to the full Working Man podcast episode so you can see for yourself if you like and hear his own commentary on it. But yeah, I agree. I don't encounter the cracker comedy firsthand either. But I do watch, there's almost a cottage industry of YouTube channels that have grown up critiquing Joe Rogan, the mothership comedy space that they have, and the right-wing comics that have attempted to have some sort of takeover. And that's how I've come to know who these people are in the first place. But yeah, so on the one hand, obviously we don't want to be on the side of the cracker comics. But at the same time, to whatever extent, there should be some healthy internal critique and discussion around what supposed black leadership is doing in the name of and in on behalf of the race. And it's unfortunate that for many people, their introduction to pan-Africanism as a concept is through that kind of performance. But all right, moving along. So again, one of the other sort of side spaces that I pay attention to a little bit is some of the news around track and field. And so I had heard about, and I talked a little bit about some time ago, there were a couple of top US sprinters in particular who were leaving professional or Olympic competition and going into enhanced sports where it's acknowledged, admitted, and permitted for people to use performance enhancing drugs. And a lot of people have been speculating that, of course, people have been doing it anyway and not getting caught. But when I saw that this new thing called the Enhanced Games was being offered as an option all of a sudden, and then when I saw who was connected to it, and that it was PeterThiel, I said, okay, so this is spooky. And why this story says the surprise winner of PeterThiel's Enhanced Games, the Olympics on steroids, were athletes who don't dope, is because the long story short is that only one world record was broken, and it was broken by a swimmer who already held the world record and who was in this games using performance enhancing drugs on top of this new technological swimsuit that allows people to be more ergonomic or whatever. Is that even the right word for water? But it's more, you have less resistance in the water. And apparently it takes like 20 minutes to get yourself into this suit. So now, what is not discussed in these track and field news spaces often is why would PeterThiel be involved in sponsoring an Enhanced Games? And of course, it's because PeterThiel wants to support this transhumanism movement of moving the human race, a select few, mostly rich and white, of course, and for him, male, superhumans that can transcend this planet and transcend the barrier of death. So he's saying, let's see what we can get with these Enhanced Games. And then, as the news report was pointing out, the only winners were those who don't dope, because no other world records fell. And the bigger headline is that most of the sprinters, for instance, in the 100 meters, had worse times than even high school students, and worse times than they had when they were allegedly running clean. So some, of course, speculated a number of things, including PEDs don't always help when it comes to sprinting, because it's not just about muscle, it's about technique. And it's not necessarily going to help you, but also speculating, of course, that they were already on PEDs and how they just weren't running as fast on this PEDs as they were on the other PEDs. But again, for me, the biggest thing that they're not talking about is this PeterThiel connection. And why is this white male techno-fascist feudalist megalomaniac wanting to drug up a whole bunch of people to see how strong they can and fast they can become, and of course with them taking the risk. So if their hearts explode or their muscles blow out or whatever, or if it just doesn't work for some other reason, Thiel and his crew don't have to suffer anything. So I just thought that was a little bit interesting. And again, spooky, you know, but also funny that nobody was breaking records. So, but you know what? Before we get to the next story, we need some more smoke. It's an all the smoke. You think what's his name or all the smoke? I got all the smoke.
Start on smoke, put it in your pocket, real slow, start on. Paint a picture, smoke. Watch your fancy chicken, man. That's too slow, smoke. I said it's too slow, smoke. Smoke, put it in the pocket.
Come on, man. I'm telling you, I'm trying to tell you, we all need some smoke. Good God. And it's no whatever gimmicks or whatever. It's just, I can't imagine what that dude would be like in a boxing ring. I want no smoke with smoke. With hands that fast, you'd be pieced up, wouldn't even see it. Pop, 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 pop. What happened? But he is, man, killing it. Yeah, he's relaxed. He's relaxed through the whole thing. It's no performance enhancements, Leah. Exactly. That's right. You don't want them hands. You don't want them hands. So, but okay. So what you do want though is this latest episode of Brokeish where Renee showed up and they had a really, the whole discussion is dope, but they had a really important exchange that I just want to play a little bit of that relates to so much of what we talk about around here in terms of voting and what we should do. So let's check out this piece here.
Like the current Trump presidency, like as somebody who like you is I am not a Democrat, and like there are local races, of course, where I will vote Democrat, like down ballot, but I haven't voted for a Democrat for president for some time. But there, I think, is a very clear difference between what this country would look like under Kamala and what it looks like today under Trump. And I mean, that's just, even if we just take the war in Iran, like even if we just take that as the thing, and there are people that are actually suffering more in terms of, now I got to pay for gas that is almost twice as much as what it was before.
That's a really big assumption, that just because it's not like an outlandish version of war with Iran, that we would not be at war with Iran. Like I mean, let's be clear. One of Kamala Harris's statements as she was running was that it was and this is, I'm rewording because I don't remember her exact words, but it was basically that we were going to have the strongest,
they're the biggest threat, or
biggest military and most vicious military, right? Iran has been on the list of countries to conquer since like 1953, when they sent Kermit Roosevelt out there to unseat the current democratically voted for president, so that they could put the Shah in. So this is not new, and every government and presidential candidate, and like they have all been after Iran. So just because Trump's an asshole and stands on TV and says we're going to destroy the civilization, and everybody's like, oh, he's not saying anything that the Democrats don't say off camera. They've all wanted to destroy Iran. Iran is geopolitically situated in a way, it has every resource, it has access to every waterway, it has access to every country. So this idea of like, you know, well, Iran wouldn't be like this. Yes, it would be different. Yeah, but they would still be attacking Iran. It would still be under sanctions. The people would still be suffering. Why is that the better version?
Well, because it's not here. Because under those versions, a lot of the things that happen that we would enact upon Iran aren't being enacted upon the American population, right? So in terms of
but no bombs drop in here.
No, we're just paying for it out of our pocket. What you're talking about is the secret war that we've always waged on the Middle East.
Economic ramifications of it are different. And here's the thing. Of course, I am not a fan of Trump, but I do think that, at least for me, I'm willing to concede that I think that there are some unique ills and harms that come out of a Trump presidency that people actually feel in ways that I think would not have happened with the Kamala presidency. I just think he offers us a unique form of America.
It's in your face. So this is the argument that I have with people all the time, is it feels different. Yes, because watching people like on camera get kidnapped off the street has like a unique, oh no, what's this? But no one tells you that's always been happening, right? We just didn't see it. So is it like, so you see it now, so you feel it, that doesn't make it worse, right?
There is, even if we say it's the same, there is a certain, I think, psychological harm that comes from watching that, right? Because if I'm a child and I'm going to school and I see on everything I see and all the news, all the propaganda, right, is pointing to this thing happening. Even if I've seen it happen, I haven't seen it happen in 100 different places, right? I've seen it happen here, but I think there is, like, even if it's a psychological harm, I do think that there is a unique
But is the psychological harm the fault of media or the fault of the governmental decisions? Because
I think it's all of it.
All of the above, yeah.
To me, the fact that it's now visible, right? Because Trump still has not hit Obama's numbers.
That's correct.
Right?
That's correct.
And Obama didn't hit Clinton's numbers,
That's
which
correct.
people rarely talk about, right? And so, you know, this idea of like, and this is a struggle, because I get it that for people who have never really thought about the consequences of our laws regarding immigration, right? Who've never seen it, who don't know the numbers, who don't know how long this has been ongoing, who don't know that ICE Air did not start last year, like none of these things are new. So it's a difficult conversation for people to have because they simply don't know, right? And for the family for whom the bread maker has already been deported and come back and deported and come back, for them, it's not scarier because it's always been scary, right? And so I think sometimes we get very caught up in like exactly what you said, like the emotional trauma of it. But the emotional trauma is for you because you were not aware that this was already the situation, right? So that's where my struggle is, because I'm like, okay, for the people for whom this has always been their trauma, right? Like I literally know people who for 40 years have been worried about, are they going to find me this time? And this, you know what I'm saying? Like this is, so for me, I'm like, I'm glad y'all are traumatized now. Like, good. You needed to understand that this is what this is what a lot of people in this country are living with and have been living with for decades. While everybody was like, oh, la-di-da, like, oh, okay, no, we need to do something at the borders. Like, people literally die trying to get to this country at an absurd rate. And none of that is new. And they still don't talk about that.
So again, I'll put the link if you haven't seen it, or just go to Black Liberation Media and find it on your own, and watch the whole thing. But I agree with many of the comments that I've been sharing, that you all been making, that this is an important conversation. And I also think it was important because there was disagreement. And again, I think more and more, increasingly so, I feel the need to point out that they had a disagreement that was just that. And then the conversation continued, the discussion continued, the jokes and the fun, the comradely whatever continued, and we move on. This again, I'm maybe projecting here, this consistent, I disagree with you, therefore we're automatically enemies, it's just too quick. It's happening too fast. It's too much, and with too little discussion. So again, many of the issues Renee brings up weekly, she brought up there, I agree 100%. Even as I very much understand and appreciate what Dr. Brown was bringing up herself. You know, we're not, those of us on this extreme left, we're not unaware and unconcerned with how many are encouraged to feel about voting, given their circumstances, or our own, for that matter. And I'm not even unmoved by the comment I shared where one of you said, you know, you lost a grant under Trump. But that's sort of the point that I understand Renee to be making, that I also understand to be harsh, but necessary, that the grants that are going out under the Democratic Party to a certain segment of a Black or any other upper middle class is not sufficient enough of a reason to not advocate for something more to the left. I'm not saying that you who made that comment today were making this point, but it's not enough for us to be moved away from what should be our appropriate political analysis and effort, which is, I think, should involve much more militancy around everything, but including how we approach the vote. And again, if people want to do that through alternate parties or just blocks even within parties, I'm more amenable to any of those than just the simple, it's the least of evils, which again, and since I continue to have it right here, and Laura Sheha's book on page 47, you can start getting the discussion around the least of evils being, no, it's not 47. So was it 42? Where the least of evils is literally set as a set of glittering generalities that are meant as psychological warfare operations by the government's military wing of psychological operations, counterinsurgency, to suppress radicalism. So if we are engaging the lesser of evils, we need to do it, I think, in that context, with that understanding, and with some much more radical pre-organizational effort taking place. So yeah, the book is fire, and I want us to come back and talk again more specifically, because we didn't get into that when Laura was on with Renee and me on Renee's show. We didn't get into enough of the Kanafani interview that she describes in the book, and I definitely want to revisit that specifically. But again, and then I also think that what we see in that conversation, especially if you watch the whole thing, is a blueprint for how many of us could engage people in our spaces around what to do with the vote. I think Renee gives a lot of good, important responses to when we hear those things. It's worse under Trump. Kamala would have been better. And again, how much better? To what extent better? And to what extent does that so-called better prevent us from advocating for something truly better? And that's so you should clip together Laura and Deculturation's thoughts on the lesser of two evils. I'd have to find Deculturation's thoughts on that, or you know. So feel free to help me out with some timestamps. I'm happy to do it, but I would have to, you know, I'm on my 1-1-5-3-4 teaching schedule, so I might need a little bit of help finding. But I think you're probably onto something there. Putting all that together would be a pretty dope clip for sure. So, but okay, so and again, that point about that Renee makes about Obama and immigration and the Democratic Party and immigration being worse than Trump, being worse, you know, Obama being worse than Trump, Biden being worse than Obama, Clinton being worse than both of them. I mean, it's wild. So, yeah, it's crazy. Oh, it's already clipped. So you're saying he said something on the show? We talked about it. You know what? Let me go through and let me check that out. I'll you know, my memory is a mess. Let's see. Why? All right, everybody. So, by the way, everybody, like, share, subscribe, support the platform however you like. Please, again, do check the show description for the emails you can use to Zelle or PayPal some funds to Dhoruba, who continues to need our support. And before I move on, let me just quickly big thanks to Kim C6867 for gifting these memberships. I appreciate that. And same to Old Grease. Thank you very much. And how does that work, by the way? When you've gifted 10 memberships, how do people collect? I don't even know how that works, but I definitely appreciate it. And Herbal Man says, hey, Doc, folk can say what they want about Umar, but that dude's wisdom and assessment are 90% on point most of the time, and his failure, I personally blame on black folk. Amen. So that's, I think, part of where we disagree. That so much of Umar, one of the reasons why I would argue you blame black people for the failure is because that's in part how Umar presents his own argument. That's why he falls into that buying power argument from time to time, and this financial literacy argument from time to time, this whole thing of we are holding ourselves back. We are doing this to ourselves. And the white man may be this, that, and the third, but we are and I don't agree with that approach. The fault is absolutely not Black people's here. And again, I understand your point, and this is sort of the issue that I continue to have with many, actually. It's not that Umar is all wrong. It's not that the reverse hashtags are all wrong. It's not that whoever else I have issues with. It's not even that the financial literacists are all wrong in their fundamental concern with the current conditions. It's the presentation of the argument. It's the ultimate analysis that is offered. It's the conclusions that are advocated. It's the individual self-important performative nature of it that I find to be problematic. So I'm not arguing that anyone is, Umar included, is 100% wrong on anything. No, I just don't find much of the argument and analysis in response to the conditions he accurately raises as a concern is much valuable. Speaking of not valuable, so I did, as I mentioned, I went and found and belatedly found a message where someone was asking me to check out the Compton Capitalist from Forbes that came out a couple of months ago. The April-May edition of Forbes about DrDre. And it's underwhelming. I mean, it's a short and ultimately silly, even for Forbes, article. But it essentially just acknowledges that despite early claims that Dre had become a billionaire, that he had actually not become a billionaire when that announcement years ago of him selling Beats to Apple was announced. So as they say here, after shaving a reported $200 million off of the price, Apple finalized its acquisition of the headphone maker a few weeks later, netting Dre more than $500 million in cash and nearly $100 million in stock, according to Forbes estimates. While it wasn't enough to get the legendary hip-hop producer onto the billionaires list that year, it formed the bulk of a fortune that more than a decade later, Forbes now estimates at $1 billion. So he's now a billionaire, according to Forbes. But for me, what is important about this story, and maybe this is why it was sent to me, is that it again explodes the mythology around Black capitalism and the potential of entrepreneurialism and artistry or anything in business in a white supremacist settler colonial capitalist society. So this whole thing about, first of all, as the article points out, Dre only becomes a billionaire because first they don't acknowledge this part. First, he becomes rich and famous by producing music that a music industry, a neo-colonial corporate owned industry, found much value in the music he was promoting, the anti-Black, self-directed, anti-woman violence that is encouraged, the promotion of a particular narrative. And I loved it. I'm not trying to front. I loved NWA. I loved all of that. I used to rock all of it. I'm whatever. I'm not, I like Dre's beats. This is not a commentary on any of that. It's just to point out that he got rich by doing following the standard pathway for so-called success in this country for the impoverished and the colonized and the African. And he produced what the ruling elite corporate structure found valuable that could be used to suppress more radical forms of the art. He got rich, he got famous, and then he links up, as he tells the story here, he shares a beach property space with Jimmy Iovine, Interscope Records. He sees him out running on the beach one day and says, "Hey, let's have a chat." Invites Iovine into his house. They have a chat. This turns into the discussion that leads to Beats by Dre, which is sold to Apple, which eventually, as Forbes points out, 10 years later, makes Dre a billionaire. Not through music, not through investment, but through a connection to a white multimillionaire corporate executive who opens up more doors for them both to make more money. And then his wealth is connected to a sale to Apple. So again, all of this narrative nonsense around the potential for entrepreneurialism and Black capitalism to do whatever it's going to do for Black people, it's obviously, to the point 2 Black has been pointing out with the supply chain problem, it's still all very much connected to what the white corporate world wants and finds value in what it finds value. So it's, and then, then they turn it into gin. And as Iovine says, when initially Dre had the idea to get into sneakers, he says, "Fuck sneakers, let's do speakers." And then he gets him into gin, like JayZ and Ryan Reynolds and Conor McGregor and George Clooney in their liquors, and so on and so on and so on. And by the way, it required this, Dre's money required an investment that is said here to be Apple's largest acquisition. His Beats is the largest acquisition at $3 billion from Apple. So again, it took one of the biggest companies in the world making its largest acquisition to turn one Black man into a billionaire. After, to build more of his empire, he sold the music rights to Universal Music Group, who own most of and Shamrock Capital, another investment group. So this is, again, you are valuable to the extent you make money for other people, the existing ruling white elite. And then that's the end of the story, and that's it. The Compton capitalist. And I think from Forbes' point of view, that's how they would want to say it. That's all you can be, the Compton capitalist. You're not the real capitalist. You're not the Wall Street capitalist or the I don't know, Rodeo Drive capitalist. You're the Compton capitalist. And if you come from Compton, this is it. You can come from the poor Black community and become a billionaire if you are uniquely situated, talented, etc., to produce a certain beat, style of beats at a certain time, at a certain moment in music history and hip hop history, and if you have certain connections to equally and more likely more rich white men, you can become a Compton capitalist and go from a gang life to enjoying, as I highlighted there, and as it says there, his life as a new billionaire. He can enjoy his life. So again, the fact of a Black billionaire means almost nothing. It actually doesn't, not almost, it means literally nothing to the rest of the Black community, whose income and wealth are ever going down and widening in terms of a gap between Black and white communities. And also within the Black community, it's just more of the creation of a ruling elite within the Black community that doesn't really do anything meaningful or helpful for the rest of the community. So, and I agree, yeah, the Compton Comprador might be more accurate, but that would require our magazine. Forbes can't come up with that. Forbes can't come up with that. So, all right, where are we going to go next? You know what? So I need a quick bio break. So let's get some more smoke. It's time for some more smoke. Everybody's getting the smoke today. And I'll be
start off smoke, put it in the pocket. Saddle up, smoke. Well, now saddle them up. Get your cell phones out, people. Get your motherfucking cell phones out. That's too slow, smoke. That's too slow. I said that's too slow. Give me that. You better give me that beat. Give me the beat, smoke. Free my soul. Wanna get loaded in your rock and roll. That's too slow, smoke.
Crazy. And wait till he starts telling him to watch the left hand. I don't even know how he's doing what he's doing on that hi-hat tom, man.
You are by yourself, smoke. By yourself, smoke. Keep your songs out, man. Keep them quiet on social media, smoke. Make them talk, but keep them quiet. I gotta say this shit. This is incredible, ladies and gentlemen. Look at that left hand. Look at that left hand, ladies and gentlemen.
I know it's hard to see, but try to look what he's. It's crazy.
Right there, smoke. Hey, Doug, hold me on the blocks, Doug. Saga B, smoke. Hey, do what you like. The best spot for.
The best spot for.
Hey, do snap. Now you can work, smoke. Smoke.
Links in the show description or email in the show description. Support Dhoruba. Because I'm broken.
I think we got him quiet now, Smoke. Y'all see my man Willie that fast. Put him in the waters, y'all. That's it. Bring that beat back. Fade away.
Whoa.
I think we got him quiet now, y'all. I think we in party mode. Stay right there, Smoke. Do style.
That's crazy.
No offense, Rules. You really hear what you're saying? You hear me? Since 20 Creature.
Woo! It just stops out of nowhere. I wasn't even ready. Oh yeah, man. Nah, man. It's the greatest. It's the greatest. And the only good thing about everybody getting older is that there are more early shows that I can go to nowadays. I'm about to go to a good 6 to 10 p.m. show in a couple of days. Junkyard Band. You know, can't be out late like that anymore. But whoo. Yeah, if you ever, I mean, you know, seriously, there's nothing like being there live. And especially for me, honestly, you know, the old folks version of it at this point where everybody's old and everybody, you know, I can't be out there with the youngins anymore, but it's nothing like it live. I mean, it's just, it's truly, it's just crazy. And then the interplay between the bands and the people, you know, like my man, Dr. Scott Brown has pointed out when he talks about the authenticity of the music. I mean, these are, you know, these are folks that don't aspire to be celebrities in that way. They don't aspire to, they go to work and then they go to, and they gig. And so it's like, you see people talk it like they give it, they know the people in the crowd, it's birthday shout outs, it's friends. It's like, it's just beautiful. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And it's real live music. And the whole point is, you know, people used like to make fun that they do a lot of cover songs and this, that, but the point isn't the song. The song is just to get you to the pocket. And if you're working all day, you don't have time to learn all songs and all this and create. I mean, it's like, that's the way I've always thought of it. It's like, I get off work, I go and I get on the set. Like, you know, it's not, and we learn, we get a couple, you get a couple clips of a hot track, put it on the pocket. I found an old Junkyard clip where they used to do just the little bit of the Anita Baker with, and they would harmonize with like 4 or 5 singers with all my heart, I love you, baby. And then and that's all that they would do. And then they just put the pocket underneath the harmony, and that's all you need. No disrespect to Anita, of course. All right, let's keep going here. We got a little bit more to go, but everybody's got to get the smoke. Got to get the smoke. By the way, if I didn't mention it, I can't believe I forgot. If I didn't mention it's in my notes here. In the Compton Capitalist article, by the way, there's 0 mention of D. Barnes. Just in case, if you were wondering, like I was, just in case, there was not even a, you know. So we're just gonna permanently forget the fact that this man beat this woman up and advocated beating this woman up. And talk proudly about beating this woman up. Yeah, admittedly, it was a long time ago. He was a young man and all of that and this, that, and the third, but she's never been, you know, I think, you know, apologized to or made whole, and now that you're a billionaire, she's still here. you know, maybe, you know, I don't know. I don't know her, don't speak for her. And I don't know that she would agree to this, but why not, you know, I don't know, 100 million. Not that that makes up for it, but 100 million just as a, my bad for 30 years ago, you know, but okay. Vicky, on point. You are, I'm not aware of any exception to this rule. There may be one, but I'm not aware of one. The go-go version is always better. It's always better. It's just always better. And but yeah, so yeah. But I don't know. So I don't know. Again, I don't know D, and I don't speak for D, and I don't know if that would make her feel any better at all. But I feel like, you know, if you got $1 billion, 100 million, just, you know, sorry for beating you up. You know, and then that's the point. That's true. Like, it's not just that she got beat up, her career suffered. Like, thank you for making that point clear. Like, her career suffered. Like, so, you know, she was a journalist. She had a TV show. She was popular. And, you know, whatever anyone thinks of anyone, nobody should be getting lumped up like that. Woman, man, boy, girl, or any other. Nobody should be getting beat up. Yeah, that's right. That's right. She did go broke. So why not 100 million, 150 million? Would he miss it? You know, you could even just say, I'll give you, I don't know, here's 5% of my stock portfolio. So you just, you know, you just in perpetuity make my, I don't know. They could work something out. All right. So I wanted to highlight this again, that I made something. I'm going to start with the reference I made, and then I'm going to show you the improved discussion. And yeah, I can just sort of make this the HBCU section. I had mentioned the sister Gabrielle a little while ago. Well, let me just start here. Let's just start here. And again, all the links, including to the smoke that I've been offering, I'll put all the links in the show description so folks don't find it on their own, you know, but Go Smoke at Go Smoke is, I believe, his handle as well. But let's check out a little bit of this here.
So in a recent Substack written by a Spelman student, which I think GabrielleCassell, which I think more of us need to pay attention to, she writes, speaking of HBCUs and AI, the decision to prioritize investment in AI will further proliferate the anti-intellectualism already pervasive throughout the institution. When generative AI hit the scene, I, like many others, got caught up in the allure of this shiny new thing that seemingly promised to make our lives easier. When the semester starts to get chaotic and endless assignments fill up your task list, the temptation to just get a little extra help to get you through is overwhelming. However, I quickly came to realize that our ability to think, comprehend, and analyze begins to erode, and you lose the ability to do the one thing that makes us unique as a species: produce knowledge. Outside of the individual repercussions, it is well-known fact that generative AI is incredibly damaging to the environment due to the excessive water use, which has disproportionately affected working-class Black communities. For an HBCU to seemingly neglect this reality is an egregious offense, to say the least. Never mind all the other ecological damage AI is doing, never mind the bubble it's creating, the fantasies and the economy it's creating. It's ridiculous. But it does lead me to...
All right. So I wanted to start there. Let me get this back together here. So I wanted to start there with my reference to GabrielleCassell's recent article talking about her thoughts as a student at Spelman College and how they how she feels that HBCUs have been reduced to the instead of encouraging critical thinking, they've been reduced to producing Black ambassadors, Black excellence ambassadors. Sorry. And I raved about the piece. It's that was a couple weeks ago in the winter. I'm technically darker now. This is the lighting. This is an issue of lighting and my fair complexion. Let's focus on the content, everybody. Focus on the content. My eyes are up here. But more importantly, on a recent episode of Dare to Struggle, Dare to Win on Black Liberation Media, they brought the sister to the show, and I just want to play this quick.
What has been talking about and shared the article in his AAUP in Morgan. I don't know if it's people in multiple campuses together or there's campus specific AAUP groups, but shared. So yeah. So any other
specifically, just quickly to answer that part, within the American Association of University Professors, with which I work a little bit, just so and kind of just brand new over the last maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, and there is an HBCU caucus, and like many organizations, there's like the Black section, and so there's this HBCU caucus that I'm a part of. And at the last couple of conventions the AAUP has had, when they've had these HBCU caucus panels, I've not been involved on the panel. I've been just in the audience. But to put it as some others have said, it would be nice if Jared had been involved. There's some perspectives missing in some of these discussions. So they've added me to this year's panel, and I've already brought up this, and I'm going to bring it up again, this article when we meet in a couple of weeks. So that's what was the reference there.
Yusuf or Sheree, got any other ones?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, because one thing I did like that you have made clear in your work is the Black feminist framework, and we've struggled on this platform around feminism and other feminisms, and like just getting that idea of like it being, I like how you very much emphasize like it's not, Black feminist framework isn't this like, oh, we just made it Black and like it's coming from a white thing. And I guess wanted to hear like you elaborate a little bit on that. I don't know if it was in that article specifically, but I think it might have been more in the following the latest article that you wrote, where I was just like, yeah, I was like, I feel like she gets it, like when you said that, I just wanted to hear kind of like your take on Black feminist framework and like its importance to the Black radical tradition and not being this white thing or your sense of it.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, like feminism has always, been Black. Like there was like a point in time where I had like some of the same thoughts I think a lot of Black folks might still have around feminism being a white woman's ideology that we tried to slap like Blackness on. But I think like what holds me to the Black feminist tradition, and particularly like a radical Black feminist tradition that comes out of like the work of folks like the Combahee River Collective, of an Audre Lorde, of a June Jordan, of a Joy James, is that it's not about like this separatist like idea, but it's about the fact that the ways that the world operates, like the way that cis heteropatriarchy operates, shapes our lives and enacts violence on us in very particular ways. And so if we don't address that in our movements, in our Black liberation movements, we're failing. And so I feel like that's where Black feminism for me is like an indelible part of the Black radical tradition, because if we're talking about freeing Black people, then we have to free us all and understand that their stratifications exist within our own communities. And I think we can see that in the ways in like when we look at the past of our movements and the civil rights and Black power movements and see how there were ways that women were neglected, their contributions were erased. And so Black feminism is not even just about bringing those to the light, but about understanding, like, at least for me, like how patriarchy functions is actually violent towards Blackness on a whole. Like even for Black men, this idea that manhood belongs to whiteness. So we're trying to obtain this thing that was never meant for us in the first place. Like as enslaved people, we weren't humans, we were chattel, we were property. And so we couldn't even have access to manhood or womanhood in the same way that white people are able to. And so I think we see a lot of the intracommunal violence is trying to obtain that privilege that we will never have access to. And so for me, a radical Black feminist praxis means letting that go, and interrogating the ways that we internalize patriarchy in our lives and how that's inherently intertwined with anti-Blackness. So that's kind of where it comes for me particularly. And of course, attacking imperialism, capitalism, colonialism is an inherent part of that. So I hope that was a good response.
Yeah. So I see a couple folks asking. I don't have the link to her article immediately, but I will find it again, put it in the show description, and then the link to that episode will be in the show description. And I think you will also find there. I think they put the link. Let me double check. Did they put the link to her article there? Nope, they're worse than me. Shame on them. So I'll put the link. I'll put all the links in the show description later today. And no Poncho, that was not. I'm not even. There's no smoke today. There's no smoke today. There's only the smoke today. I'm not engaging any other that nonsense. That was not a message for anyone in particular at all. Just all of us. Just all of us. And the point I was thinking most actually immediately is the point that, as she makes in the article I was referencing, that HBCUs are not interested in forms of radical Black feminism or radical critical thinking, that they are discouraging all of that in favor of Black excellence ambassadorships and entrepreneurialism, STEM, military service, cyber technology, cybersecurity, et cetera, and so forth. So, and again, I've mentioned this already. I just want to reiterate again, before I show you this next piece, that again, Fisk, sort of to the point that Gabrielle is making, that I was making, others are making, is $1 billion to transform the campus to build a data center. So that's where the money is coming from. That's where HBCUs and others are looking to find money. And for those trying to become like Morgan State or Research One institutes, they need to be able to get more money and produce more research and or be seen to be doing that. So now again, this is something I often have to remind myself not to conflate in my own mind, but so I don't want to do this again here. There is a difference between HBCUs and Black studies as a field, but I did see this story in The Nation and thought it was interesting for a couple of reasons. But it came out last month, the dismantling of Black studies. Everyone committed to democracy, intellectual freedom, and the rule of law should be alarmed at what is happening and prepared to act, by Jafari Sinclair Allen. And so Well, as they start off here, they make the important point with which I agree, that in the U.S. Academy, students, staff, and faculty, university publishers, cultural institution workers are afraid. The recent assault on higher education is not evenly distributed. Black studies is where the attack has been most deliberate, the most structural, and the most revealing of what is at stake. In recent months, university leaders have dismantled departments and deliberately narrowed the pipeline, producing the next generation of Black scholars. What is happening is not just a series of isolated bureaucratic decisions, it's a coordinated assault. So on the one hand, I'm reminded of what we were just looking at in terms of the discussion on Brokeish, the recent episode of Brokeish with Renee, Dr. Brown, and Amber, that yes, there is a newness and a heightened maybe nature to the assault under the Trump administration. But unlike what I think this article does, I'm in agreement with Renee that we can't allow the nightmare that is currently being faced to prohibit us from realizing the nightmare that preceded it. Or to think of another form of a nightmare as a solution. So again, I'll put the link in the show description, but the long story short of this article is that Trump administration is making things worse and the attack on Black studies is ramping up. And again, I cannot help it. It's obviously bad, and I feel for my colleagues and myself. But I can't help but just putting out there that some part of me, despite it being against my own individual interests, feels like this is necessary. If we can find some silver lining in the dark cloud of the Trump administration, I think it should be not a retreat to more liberal forms of pre-existing states, but it should be a chance to run head on into the heightened contradictions that are created and confront them with more militancy. And specifically what I'm saying is that the pre-existing neoliberal institutions of higher education and the disciplines housed within have been largely hostile to radical critical thinking, Blackness, and Black radicalism for decades. Black studies, as this article notes itself, has been attacked from the moment it was imposed on college campuses and has been worked to be undermined ever since, from the beginning. I think it would be fair for us to step back and ask objectively, as we think about saving programs and departments and institutions and people, what were they providing initially? What were they providing before this level of attack in terms of analysis, protection, advance, whatever? And I think we should look critically at that. So, and say that part of the fight against what's happening now should include some reassessment of where we were beforehand and some corrective measures taken. For instance, last year, in 2025, I did in my own small way a commemoration of the fact that in 1975, as Abdul Al-Kali reminded us, Black Studies had a conference where there was an attempt to commit the field to being anti-imperialist. And at the 50th anniversary of that conference last year, I think it was fair to assess that mission had been at best incomplete. The undermining of which, again, began long before Trump got there and was aided in part because of the Democratic Party and other forms of power that were never interested in protecting these programs and departments and et cetera, and worked diligently to populate those spaces with as many compradors as possible. But anyway, as is written here, the University of Texas at Austin has folded its renowned Department of African and African Diaspora Studies into a generic social and cultural analysis studies unit. Florida Senate Bill 266 had stripped Black Studies courses of their general education status and cut the research funding that faculty depend on. Kentucky's House Bill 4 had suspended the University of Louisville's Pan-African Studies doctoral program and eliminated all graduate assistantships. Just some reflections on Black studies and HBCUs. Black Studies is not merely a container for scholarship. It is a set of practices and habits of mind developed over the long intellectual tradition that began before Black people were permitted to attend any educational institution in the United States. It's a good point, and I think one that, again, has in many ways been lost as the field has become institutionalized, and people found careers in those fields that led to and encourage a form of work that undermines that initial purpose. But as I said here, this is sort of the point. Grants from the Ford Foundation during the field's early years favored supplementing the existing curricula at predominantly white institutions over the autonomous self-governing departments that Black student activists had demanded, producing a field that has been dependent on administrative goodwill from its inception. This is certainly what we saw at Cornell, where the Africana Studies and Research Center was forcibly brought into existence, but then relatively quickly did end up taking Ford Foundation money. And then I think it's fair to argue that over the next 50 years, worked to remove the initial militancy and militants and replace them with, more neo-colonial bourgeois forms of academics. The university's incorporation of Black Studies was an exercise of power calibrated to absorb the field's critical force precisely by appearing to welcome it. That is exactly right, and a powerful point to consider. Christopher Rufo's campaign to pervert and weaponize the term critical race theory, a campaign triggered by the College Board's proposed advanced placement African-American studies curriculum, bore direct legislative fruit. By 2022, more than 40 states had introduced bills restricting the teaching of divisive concepts, a phrase lifted from the vocabulary of the first Trump administration. And again, one of Rufo's key targets was and is Ibram Kendi, who, again, I think it's fair to say does not represent the most militant wing of Black studies, and yet is held up by the white right as the critical race theorist threat. So similar to other spaces politically, and even, again, similar to the previous discussion around electoral politics, it allows for a so-called lesser of evils to seem legit. And then we're never encouraged to get back to the forms of scholarship and analysis that Kendi, it could be argued, is there to negate. In March 2025, the Department of Education opened civil rights investigations against 45 universities for their participation in the PhD Project, a 32-year-old nonprofit that has helped more than 1,700 Black, Indigenous, and Latino students earn doctoral degrees. 31 of those universities, including Yale, Duke, MIT, Ohio State, and Michigan, have since signed agreements cutting ties with the organization. Education Secretary Linda McMahon called this the Trump effect in action. And as this article points, it is this article, right? I'm not sure if it's in this article or another one. Maybe it is in this one, but the point being that some of these institutions, like these are Yale, well, Duke, MIT, maybe Ohio State and Michigan, but like these are not, for the most part, Southern bastions of the deep, dark slaveocracy past. And yet they've never really been friendly houses and welcome, homes welcoming Black studies. And Yale, of course, with his, Henry Louis Gates and all this other kind of stuff and all, connections, like it's again, it has never been at the cutting edge of advancing a radical analysis that is helpful. And yet its attack here reads as if it was. And then sort of to my point, the article here notes that in 2005, NYU quietly folded its Africana Studies program into a broad administrative umbrella called the Department of Social and Cultural Analysis without meaningful consultation with the faculty and students who would be affected. One day there was a program in an intellectually rich and generative space. The next day there was an announcement and a reorganization. At the time, the move was called prudent. We should have paid more attention. So in 2005, I was a freshly minted PhD student, only a couple of years removed from the Africana Studies and Research Center at Cornell, where again, under the founding directorship of its initial director, the late great Dr. James Turner. And this line of we should have paid more attention rings heavily, because when I got to the Africana Center in 1999, they had already just come off of a recent reignited fight with the university that was trying to undermine the autonomous position of the center. By 2010 or 11, they had undermined it, and it lost its autonomy and was put back under the purview of the Dean of College of Liberal Arts. And the director lost its autonomy and the autonomous ability to hire, set curricula, et cetera, and so forth. All before Trump, all before and during I was going to say all before and during Democrat and at least one previous Republican administration. But the point still being, plenty of Democrats had plenty of power for plenty of time for all of this to be protected if that had been a goal. And it never was. So the idea that Trump was starting something brand new is part of the mythology that, again, I think Renee is doing a good job of challenging. The leaders of Black Studies program at UT Austin learned in a 30-minute Zoom call that the department would be folded along with American Studies, Mexican American, Latina Studies, and Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies into yet another Department of Social and Cultural Analysis. So again, by the way, and what this does when they do this, like they've done at Morgan, when they collapse political science and economics, or they collapse my department. Again, I'm currently in the history, religion, museum studies, and geography department, which on its face just makes zero sense. But what you do when you collapse everything, the most obvious thing is you get rid of 4 different chair positions. So you reduce the amount of authority and higher paid authority that is involved in as an intermediary between faculty and the executive level administration. So you cut costs, you reduce everybody into one department, one chair, one salary, and less resources. Then, of course, each program or department losing its autonomy loses ability to again hire, set curricula, and have faculty governance. On February 20th, NYU canceled 13 culture, identity, and faith-based graduation celebrations, including for Black, Latin, LGBTQ plus and first-generation students, citing the current political climate without elaboration. NYU is not a public university. This is the line. This is what I was referencing. NYU is not a public university in a red state. It is a private research university in Manhattan's Greenwich Village. The false dichotomy of red, blue state, private, public flagship Ivy has become not only debilitating but dangerous. The assault on the academy does not recognize those distinctions, neither should our resistance. I would add the false dichotomy of Democrat, Republican. That's the one false dichotomy, at least one, that was not listed here. Because again, they're talking about New York in a blue state at a private, well-funded university that should be able to say, we're not worried about what Trump is claiming or doing. We're going to do what we want to do. but this is what they want to do. They're not here to, so I'm just saying, again, I'm not denying the shift or even the worsening conditions under Trump. I'm just simply saying the absence of recognizing the equally false dichotomous relationship between the Democrats and Republicans, as they point out, red state, blue state, public, private, flagship, Ivy, needs to be considered. Otherwise, whatever resistance is evolved is going to be insufficient. Now, I do like the metaphor drawn here where they talk about the history of whites preferring to pour cement in a pool rather than allow black people to share it with whites, and making the point that white people hurt themselves by this attempt to deny blackness. And then saying here that BlackStudies is the pool. All over the country, you can hear cement trucks rumbling down the streets. But I don't know. I've read this as, again, another kind of liberal appeal to a white conscience that doesn't exist. And I admit my initial feeling is kind of the same thing. Then fuck all the pools. Pour cement in the pool. Pour and then pour cement in your pool too. Fuck your pool. Nobody gets a pool. Like I personally, and I admit that this is just my personality. I would rather nobody have a pool than have a fight with somebody to share their pool. You know, I think about it all the time. One of my favorite moments raising my oldest daughter was watching her as a very young child go to a sandbox, and I took her to the sandbox at the public park or whatever. And a white mother and her kids show up, and they have all these little, sandcastle building tools and stuff. And my daughter goes over to the little boy and sees he's got his castle. He's building his castle with his tools, and she's been playing, and she wants to go over and play and share his tools. And he said no. And she kicked over his castle. And I just smiled. And as his mother got upset and looked over at me, I just smiled at her and didn't say a word. And then she took her child and they left. That's how I feel, though. You don't want to share your sandcastle? Fine. Nobody has a castle then. Then nobody gets a castle. I'm not going to fight with you for your castle. You don't have a castle. I don't have a castle. Nobody gets a castle. I don't want a pool. Damn your pool. Now, I admit, I thought this part was interesting. Salute to the late, great Manning Marable. But as the author says here, I joined Columbia's Department of African American and African Diaspora Studies, which grew out of the Institute for Research in African American Studies in 2023, founded by Manning Marable, who is one of the most widely read and influential scholars in the 20th century. The department also publishes Souls, a critical journal of Black politics, culture, and society, which Marable launched in 1999. As its editor, I often sit in his chair, not metaphorically, but literally. I am telling you this not to establish a credential, but to offer an orientation. I know what it feels like to inherit hard-won infrastructure and to feel in the same moment how fragile that infrastructure is. And I admit, I read this part and I said, oh, wow. I said, again, I'm reminded of how absurd it was for me to think that me being critical of Marable's last book would offer me any invitation to Black study spaces, when in reality, I and Dr. Burroughs and others are being critical of an institutional legend that would, to this day, have reverberating effects and lead to reverberating marginalization. But it also reminded me of the sort of broader point that I'm trying to make. Part of our criticism of Marable, of the final book attributed to Marable, Malcolm X, A Life of Reinvention, is that it had become an institutional mouthpiece, speaking against the Black radical tradition and the politics of Malcolm X and the politics we should be espousing and looking to work with, and the politics that Manning Marable himself seemed to work with most of his life. In fact, Dr. Burroughs, part of what Burroughs did for our book was, and I think he should have done more, could have done more, maybe did do more that I missed. I don't think so, though. He'll let me know. But part of what he did was he went through the Soul's journal and did an assessment of Marable's work. And the way I'm paraphrasing it, it was to show that that the work we see in that book attributed to Marable, published by Viking Press and Wendy Wolf, is a departure from Marable's previous body of work. And that's what was so confusing to us. But what I do think it speaks to is the problem here that, yeah, Marable had become an institution, was an institution at a powerful private research university, and for reasons that go beyond anything that is his fault, was not able to protect Black studies, to even produce work at the end of his life that would carry on the radical traditions of Black studies. Some would look askance at his relationship to the beef between Columbia and the Audubon, where Malcolm was assassinated, and now his daughter runs the center. So anyway, that's just what I thought when I read this part. It's like, yeah, of course. So you're sitting in the seat that Marable used to occupy, and while relatively individually protected, you're unable to do anything but survey the broader state of the field, which is collapsing. And again, this point of what was that, the value of that hard-won infrastructure that we want to go back to the pre-Trumpian days, halcyon days, was so good. And that's the point. It wasn't. So, before I jump back and check any of the thoughts from the chat, please do like, share, subscribe. Please, again, check the show description for the emails to use to offer some fundraising support to Dhoruba, who is in need of support. And again, there's no retirement plan currently that I'm aware of for political prisoners. So if you can, and again, all the money raised on this video will go to him. So if you do drop a super chat, or oh wow, I didn't even notice, as Random Thought did, thank you very much. This and whatever else is raised will go to Dhoruba. And yeah. So please do support if you can. Absolutely. Dr. Ball, I'm from Baltimore, always kind of disliked go-go, but you single-handedly made me love it, even though Dr. Dawes' Club Mix intro is undefeated. No argument there. I think I'll give the slight nod still to our Earn Your Liberation Season 2 intro featuring Skip Kuhn, who I don't think there's a rapper. There's no rapper better than him. You could argue that you have someone else as your favorite, but there's no one better than Skip. I would argue we have a slight advantage, but I'm not mad at that at all. And first of all, I appreciate everything you're saying there. I fully appreciate the divide. Was born in DC, went to school in Baltimore briefly, work in Baltimore, and have lived in the Howard County intermediary space most of my life. I get the whole space. I know I know that the DMV does not include Baltimore or even my beloved Howard County. I also know that within DC, there is a resistance to the Department of Motor Vehicles and an erasure of DC proper. And I appreciate that as well. I also appreciate that Baltimore has its own thing, and Club is it. And there's no, when we used to have parties at Frostburg State, when they would have the Black student parties at Frostburg State University in undergrad, they would literally pull the divide, because everybody at Frostburg State in Western Maryland was either from PG County, DC, or Baltimore. And they would literally pull the divide, and they would have the club DJ over here and the go-go DJ over here. They would literally split the Black community down the middle. So I get it, and I can appreciate that, and I agree. Dr. Dennis Winkler's, Dr. Dennis Asar Winkler's Amos Wilson intro is incredibly bars. It is that good. And I'm honored. I'm in the video. I made the video. So, but yeah, it's so I appreciate all of that. Let's see, before I move on, any other people not from Maryland may assume we all like Baltimore, but PG and DC got more synergy. Yeah. Again, Prince George's County, pretty girl county, Maryland is as different from Baltimore, Maryland as you can get within a Black community. It's not so it's yeah, if and I get it. It's weird when people come from other parts of the world to this area. They're like, it's shocking to them to learn how much Baltimore and DC don't fuck with each other. Who is Mo Glurk? Who are you talking to? The hippie Hebrew? You got to clarify yourself. Who are you talking to? Inclusivity, more like exclusivity, thirsty for clout. I don't know what you need to clarify yourself. Does this person need to, what is going on here? What's happening? Is this funny jokes I'm missing? What's happening here? Could a dedicated fundraiser may be done for Brother Dhoruba on one of these illustrious platforms? It sounds like a serious situation. I mean, the short answer is yes. The short answer for this platform, the short answer is yes, absolutely, anytime, and I'm attempting to do it now. And I don't know what else I don't know what else would be appropriate to say, so I'll just leave it there. But yeah, absolutely. Well, Leah, you got that wrench. You got the wrench. As far as the link, there's no link in terms of supporting Dhoruba. You just have to use the emails in the show description to send it PayPal or Zelle. And if and again, all the money that is raised on this video through AdSense or your super chats will go to him as well. So yeah, and if Josh is on it, Josh is on it. Good. And absolutely. But and would absolutely support it. But I don't know what else. Yeah. All right. So I know I'm running, well, got a little bit of time. So I do want to talk about, oh man, I got hacked, everybody. My email got hacked. So some of you, people are getting these emails from me that didn't come from me. So I apologize for that. Thank you, Solmega. The Gmail works for Zelle just fine. It's a better option because YouTube won't take a cut. That's a good point. That's a good point. So feel free to do that. No, it's not a weed stream. The smoke is smoke. Flash Cloud must have just showed up. So all right. I have been talking about this for a long time and went back and did finally what I had been saying I should do for a long time. And I went back and rewatched Distinguished Gentleman, which is, I can't say it's my favorite Eddie Murphy film because I still think Life has that and maybe Harlem Nights. But I love this film. I don't pretend, I'm not making any claims to it being third cinema. I'm not making claims that it's doing something magical, but as a first cinema Eddie Murphy film, it gets so little attention, despite how good it is. And the fact that it stars Cheryl Lee Ralph alone makes it worth the time. But what I really appreciated about this film is that it seems to be as honest an assessment of Congress as we've ever gotten or would likely get in a major motion picture film. So just quickly, folks aren't familiar with the story. Eddie Murphy plays a con man. So of course they have to start with that, his all black and brown con person crew. And he realizes that the biggest con is Congress. So he does a fancy thing using name recognition to get himself elected. And they quickly move the grift to the higher level of government. So what you get a lot of are, in fact, it starts with he gets the idea for his plan by overhearing a discussion of insider trading, which obviously is what goes on all day, every day with Congress. And I think they say, whether it's Nancy Pelosi or whether it's Donald Trump, they said he's made almost 4,000 investment trades just in 2026, making these Iran peace treaty ceasefire announcements to manipulate the market every week. So we get that in this film. We get Eddie Murphy says, oh, wow, you can insider trade. You can get legal bribery through lobbying. He runs you even get during his campaign victory speech, he prefigures Obama. He gives a campaign victory speech where he says a bunch of empty platitudes, including hope and change. Everybody wants hope, and he just says hope and change, and everybody applauds. Della Reese is again in here, and has a role as and playing a congressional aide or staff member. And there's a scene where, despite the sexual harassment that is in there, she has a scene where she can't find Eddie Murphy's congressional pin, and starts to not want to let him in because he doesn't have his pin. It reminded me of when Cynthia McKinney was in Congress and they tried to run that on her and turn her into the crazy black woman by saying that she didn't have her pin, so they weren't going to let her in, despite her being a very popular congresswoman at the time. Here, Eddie Murphy's brand new, so you could almost forgive somebody for not recognizing him and the absence of his pin. But when Cynthia did that, it was and then you just get, you get 90 minutes. It's a low budget film. It was filmed in Delaware because the downtown of Delaware kind of looks like DC a little bit. So they were saving money by not shooting in DC. You get the heroism, you get, Eddie Murphy's character overcomes his initial hustlerism to become a good guy, and he exposes the fraud in Congress. And then it ends, I wrote my note here, that it ends with a perfect setup for a sequel, because it ends with him saying, when they're asking, well, now that you become this popular congressman who's going to lose his seat more than likely, what are you going to do next? And he says, well, I'll just run for president. But I could see why they wouldn't have wanted to fund a sequel for this, because a sequel with him as president exposing the corruption at that level in a comedic way would have probably been too much for Hollywood. But I did also note that if they can redo Devil Wears Prada after 20 years, give a part 2 to that after 20 years. Why couldn't they have Eddie Murphy come back in Distinguished Gentleman 2, where he becomes Obama, having realized the real hustle is pretending to be left? That was my little concluding note about Distinguished Gentleman. They could have a part 2 with Eddie Murphy, and he realizes that playing the Obama role is the ultimate hustle. And they could even show him having retired after 8 years in office, continuing the hustle with Netflix movies and you know, palatial estate housing and so on and so forth. And you know what? This is a good point. I maybe stand corrected. That's a legit point. I don't know if we'd want that after seeing Coming to America too, because you know what? That was a huge disappointment. You know what? That's a good point. Maybe I take it all back. But I did initially think that the Obama campaign would have been a good sequel to that movie. And I do like the film. And I think it shows you all, and they have a lot of great scenes about showing the legal bribery and you know, the initial scene where he sits down. I forgot the white actor's name. He was in a lot of movies in the 80s and the 70s and 60s. But he sits down with Eddie and he says, "So Eddie, what do you think of lawsuits or, you know, what is it, medicinal malpractice lawsuits?" And then he says, "What should I think?" And the guy says, "Well, if you're for them, I'll get you money from the law lobbying community, the lawyers, people, whatever. And if you're against it, I'll get you money from the medical community." But they show you immediately, you got to start fundraising to get reelected. And to do that, you have to capitulate. And they have another great scene where they show the kids are on some tour visiting the Congress, and Eddie comes out of what was supposed to have been a vote. And they were like, "What did you vote on?" He was like, he didn't even know what bill he had gone in to cast a vote for. And his buddies come through and they thought they were voting for something. He thought he was voting for something. So they have to come. So they're showing you all of the fuckery of it all. And I thought that was pretty dope as a film. So yeah, that's what, you know, I definitely appreciated seeing it again. And it was also, you know, my daughters are being introduced to Cheryl Lee Ralph through Abbott Elementary. And I was like, she's been dope for a long time. So, all right. I did not get this. I see that I did not timestamp this one out. So I don't know. If we'll play too much of this, but I did want to play. I saw a little bit of this.
If you go back and look at Martin Luther King, and it's online, the speech that he was going to do at his church, that the week that he died, you would have thought that was Malcolm X.
Bulworth was good. Yeah.
Martin Luther King was sick of getting his ass beat on. He wanted to be about finances. He was talking about some of the things that were going on in the war that nobody dared to speak.
See, that was the first thing I noticed in this discussion, this clip between DavidBanner and CamNewton. King wanted to be about finances. And it's like, no, he wanted to be about redistribution of wealth and an end of capitalist exploitation. This suggests that he wanted to be about another small business endeavor.
That was the reason why they killed that man. But the version of Martin Luther King that black people love, I don't think Martin Luther King liked him when he died. If they could separate themselves, he wouldn't like that dude.
I agree with that.
That's heavy.
But it's the truth.
But how?
He told Harry Belafonte, "I think I have integrated my people into a burning house." That's basically telling Harry Belafonte everything that I built my life on is a lie.
See, but he's leaving out the rest of the statement, though. The rest of the statement, whether you agree or not, was, "I feel like I've integrated my people into a burning house, so we must become firefighters." So Banner's putting a spin on it that's not accurate.
He said said that. DavidBanner didn't say that.
But he said more than you said he said, which changes the context of it.
And I think if you ask his kids, they would tell you that.
No, his kids wouldn't. His kids are not following in his political legacy at all.
Just harsh to realize that we've been duped, bro. That's the hardest thing when it comes to food, history, bro. If it ain't mathematics or science, in most cases, these people done lied to us. And that's hard to admit that we went down the wrong road, bro.
So I'm trying to separate because I'm trying to follow.
So again, like I was saying earlier, there's a legitimate basis in a lot of these positions where we end up disagreeing. There is a foundation of agreement. Anyway, yeah.
And specifically to Martin Luther King.
Martin Luther King.
The version that is...
by the way, Martin Luther King is a reference to an EddieMurphy movie, to Coming to America 1 in the barbershop. So an interesting overlap there.
In front of us, the propaganda that we see in schools and in Black History Month and the I Have a Dream and the monuments and how great Martin Luther King was and what he stood for. You're saying that it's a lie?
What I am saying is, boy, here go all them endorsements, Regina. Regina said, No, bro, like.
Cam, like, don't say it on my platform.
Was the worst thing that ever happened to Black people. Being enslaved is just losing a war. Like, once we integrated,
Man, have you ever been locked in on some plans and you hit that classic?
My fault. That's terrible. That came out of nowhere.
Once we integrated, we thwarted the opportunity to teach our own children. We don't have no options on what we teach Black kids in public schools. Think about this, y'all. In a lot of public schools, in a lot of colleges, they tell Black men that they can't wear locks. Your natural hair. Dog, do you see that they say they can do anything to meet that they want to, put anything they want to without telling you the truth about it? Think about right now in America, what Black people have influence over what happens to their children in general. What they feed them, what they see on TV, what they hear on the radio, any of those things. So by integrating, by even saying that you want civil rights, take the word, the operative part of the word is civil, right? You're saying that I just want you to treat me civilly, right? And anything that you do.
Not that I fully disagree with what he's saying, but that's not really what they mean by civil rights, right? That civil rights means legal access to what legally you're supposed to have access to. It's not just about being treated civilly. It means, you know, it's not about saying, treat me nicely. It's about having public policy protect the rights that are supposed to be guaranteed to every so-called citizen.
In life, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to make 100, right?
But that's also why people like King and, of course, Malcolm before him and many other radicals were saying we need to move beyond civil rights to human rights and take the Black struggle beyond the borders of the United States internationally, which is, again, why efforts to reduce Black America only to America are reactionary and backwards.
If you're great. So if you fall short of civil, that means they treat a dog better than they treat you. I don't want civil rights. I want you to treat me like the God that I am. And so what I'm saying is that they take pieces of a person.
And again, as an atheist, I'm saying if you're a God, you are supposed to be able to impose your will, not ask for it to be accepted and appreciated by someone else. So let's take that. If we're gods and goddesses, let's take that to what it should mean: infinite power. And then be clear about what we want, organize around it, and go get it. And make it less vague and mystical.
Like they couldn't stop Malcolm X, so what they made him was an X on a hat.
That's a fact.
The same thing that they did to Jesus in Christmas. They took Christ out of Christmas and put.
No. And I'm going to come back to an error that I made a little while ago in a minute around that. No, but this is where we do disagree. Jesus himself was the X on the hat. They didn't reduce Jesus to Christmas. They created Jesus and Christmas to reduce an appropriate scientific understanding of the world and our place in it to a faith-based story. Please see Chidimaka's 3-step process to accepting Jesus. I'll add that to the link description. So, but that said, I understand the point he's trying to make.
The X. These are the mind games that we don't see. And to be honest with you, as our friendship grows, these are the types of things that keep me up at night, Cam, because I see it. And it's so clear.
So you would have wanted segregation to stay segregated?
Well, I would have wanted Black people to build their own shit. I would have wanted Black people to praise their own God.
Okay.
I would want Black people to teach their own kids. I'm not saying that we can't be together, but would you respect somebody who you allowed to stay in your house, whether you forced them to stay there or not? And what, they've been staying there for 50, 60, 70, 80 years, 100 years? It's time for us to get our own. If we have our own, then we don't have to beg for anything. Like,
or the ability to create your own. Because I think that's a lot of suppression too, that's not being mentioned, especially going back to slavery. Mm-hmm. It's not to say that we couldn't have our own. We didn't have the rights to have our own. You feel what I'm saying?
But what I'm saying is that even within that, man, like, I give you a great example. I told you, bro, if I had any power in the spaces that I wanted, it's coming. But like, bro, I would make you the Black Superman, bro. Like, period, dog. I don't want there to ever be a period where our children don't think that they're gods or that they're superheroes. Like, think about this. This is gonna mess y'all head up. A real superhero is a representation of a god. Wonder Woman is a god. Superman is a god. I love Black Panther. I don't want to be no cat.
Superman is not a god. So we got to get back to Dr. Burroughs and his analysis of all of this. Superman is not a god. Superman is a creation of Jews to be an allegory for Jews and their experience in a post-World War II relative utopia where they can have an identity that is both masked and only powerful in relationship to this society. So out in the universe or whatever, Superman is not a god. He's an allegory for a specific group of people. And this is again what happens when a mythology born out of one people's experience or interests is imposed on another, going back even to his reference to Jesus. It's a similar thing. These are references to symbols and histories and belief systems that are born out of a certain set of certain communities and certain set of interests that are then imposed on others. So yeah, I don't know as much about the history of the Wonder Woman character, but the Superman one, that I think it's a misunderstanding there. And then I also think that Cam was making a point that Banner kind of missed or is working to move around, which is that Black people haven't failed to achieve some form of independence because of some, again, internal failure, but because there's been no access. So that would have existed in a segregated experience or an integrated one. A segregated experience never would have allowed for, and never did allow for, Black communities to achieve the levels of independence, autonomy, and wealth creation that I think Banner is fantasizing. It also didn't allow for Black people to create and popularize a symbolic version of themselves as internally colonized and segregated did not mean that the communicative power of the white state didn't penetrate Black communities. and Black communities didn't have the resources to produce the kinds of media and content and technology that would carry that media into these again, autonomously segregated Black spaces, or nominally autonomous but segregated Black spaces. So there's, yeah.
I want to be a fucking god. And what they're telling us that we can't be gods when when the word hero comes from Heru, a Black man. So the word comes from a Black man and you can't be a real hero. And then watch this, it's gonna fuck y'all head up.
But more than hero, I mean, and actually I don't know if that's true, but the story of Jesus, I believe, has more of a etymological, well, not etymological, but historical root. I mean, the story of Jesus is the story of Heru.
Where does Superman get his power from? Come on, y'all in here. From the sun. White people are allergic to what? The sun. There's no way Superman could be white. A white scientist.
Black people are also allergic to the sun too, by the way. It is radiating a harmful radiate whatever. So yes, melanin is a protective measure, but it is not, especially nowadays, it is not the protective measure that it once was. But yeah, anyway.
Just said that it's not possible. They run from the sun. Superman is supposed to be darker than the darkest night ever.
No, he's not, because he's meant to represent European Jews. So he's not meant to be dark. That wouldn't make any sense. And white people love the sun too. They maybe have to be more careful with it, but they appreciate the sun, and it's always, yeah, anyway.
These are the things that I notice, and it be fucking my head up, dog. I can't sleep. And I'd be like, don't nobody else see it? And then when I say it,
no, they do see it, and many people see it, and they see it in ways that I would argue add a little bit more substance to what Banner is saying here. So again, Dr. Burroughs and others have written about these histories of these comics, for instance, and what they really represent. They see the Superman, the S symbol is not an S. It's another, what is it? Is it a Hebrew? It's got some other, I forgot all the details, but but that's the point. People have done this, and that's this. It's sort of my point about all of this. There are people who have done the research regarding everything he's talked about, from King to Malcolm to propaganda to media to integration, segregation, Black economics, pop culture, Superman, comics. Black Myths podcast did it too on Black Liberation Media. So I mean, there's no shortage really of critical thought on all of these issues. It's that Banner and those similarly situated are not taking the requisite time to study before they get on these very popular platforms. So then it sounds sort of disjointed, or to some as if he's saying something new or worse, revelatory.
Say that I'm crazy. When I said something about that, I can't say it because last time
see, and then then that right there. So on the one hand, you started the conversation by saying that the one category white people do not lie to us about is science, and then you're going to sit here and say that the vaccine is a problem. And I'm confident in saying that Banner doesn't know anything about the science of the medicine of the vaccines or any of that, and should not be offering advice about that. He should be doing the research into that as much as these other areas of study that seem to be new and revealing to him and less confused and confusing.
I said they threw me off TV. Like, and look at what they're saying about.
And by the way, they wouldn't have thrown you off TV for saying that about that. They would have, you would have landed in the right wing Black, Rogan sphere.
What happened to people after they took that? Blood clots. They can't have children.
No, that's wrong. Again, actually, he's recounting all of this is factually inaccurate. It's overwhelming that people who took the vaccine are healthier. And it's like 99% of the people who are sick from COVID are people who did not take the vaccine. So this stuff about blood clots and whatever else.
Children, they die. I missed the movie.
And children dying is it's all lies. Completely factless. That's too bad he descended into all of this.
Movie because of that. But they acted like I was crazy when I said something about it. Bro, I'll just tell you this.
And if you what movie did you lose and why? And I wouldn't want to work with somebody who would refuse to take the shot either, if that was the point that was being made. But, you know,
from this point in my life, and this is going to.
And actually, I want to know, what was the movie role that he lost? What movie was he about to be in?
Surprise you. I really want to be around good human beings. Everything that I do in my life will always be for Black people. But I realize that it is important for me to do for me, and those who see it can come along. Those who don't have to suffer. And they will suffer until they see if my way is the right way, it's the way to go. But Cam, it's the best time in history. Why everybody's scared and why so many wild things is happening in the world. If we had our shit together, it wouldn't take but a couple of us to put our money together, bro. We can go buy and do anything. We can go buy up Ghana. We can go any of these places, buy land here. We can go back to Mississippi.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Point blank period. No sugar coat, no nothing. Are you a racist?
So, again, factually speaking, that's incorrect. There's what land is waiting for Black people to pool their money and purchase and to do what with? I mean, that's and then is he paying attention to Ghana? What's happening there and with expats and land purchasing and Ghana itself is largely a neo-colony. I was just looking at another story about the chocolate industry. They don't even it's like Ghana is to chocolate what South Africa is to diamonds. They have all the land and all the productive and all the natural resource capacity, but they don't have the political power, the policy, or the productive capacity to turn that into the chocolate that the world buys and that they think they're getting from Switzerland or wherever. So what is he saying would be done? And then, so yeah, a lot wrong in that one. And speaking of wrong, let me there's a couple things that I wanted to take a moment to clarify that I've gotten wrong before I wrap up today. So I had mentioned, let me pull this up. First of all, actually, so another thing that David Banner seems to miss, and at least in that clip, not count, in that interview that I looked at recently between Saul Williams and Brianna Joy Gray, and believe me, more is coming on this I Love Boosters film. Saul mentioned this graphic novel that he's done, Martyr, Loser, King. And I haven't finished it yet, and I don't pretend to fully understand it because it gets into areas of mysticism and stuff that I'm not familiar with, but I'll just to show you a little bit of but it's dope. To the tune of Bob Marley's No Woman, No Cry. No Jesus, no life. No Jesus, no life. But, so he gets into, so I would encourage Banner and others to check it out. Like, there are people who do make Black superheroes. So for instance, maybe if Banner looked into that more, the next time he's on CamNewton or some other popular platform, he, instead of saying, I want to make you the Black Superman, you could hold up someone else's art that exists already and say, we have Black African superheroes. They do exist. There's I don't read much and I don't follow it much, but I know they're out there. But so, oh, I should have left that up because I need to pull up. So I had showed this book here and was reading it and finding it fascinating and watching the channel of Matthew Britt and his co-author Jaron Wingo, or Jaron, I think Wingo, and Christ Before Jesus, Evidence for the Second Century Origins of Jesus. And it's a fascinating read, and they use telemetry, I think it's how you call it. It's a way of feeding text into a formula, not AI, but like a processor, and it assesses and helps you determine who wrote what you are reading, or where what you're reading would have likely come from, or what time, or something like that. And their argument is that Jesus never existed and was a figment of an oral history tradition that eventually got written into what we know of as the Gospels decades and longer after the life of Jesus was supposed to have lived. And they argue that this is evidence for the second century origins of Jesus by showing how a lot of the text mirrors Greek literature of the day, as opposed to what Hebrews would have been writing if this had all been real. But it, again, because this is nowhere near anything I would be familiar with as an expert or trained or capable, I just find it fascinating. I watched this discussion, and I'll put all these links in the show description, which is a discussion of, it's a critique of that book by scholars and sort of advanced lay people, I think you would call the host there, Godless Engineer, who attempted to duplicate the findings of Wingo and his co-author and showed that they couldn't, and showed that the findings, the methods were flawed. They argued in this very long video that I watched in its entirety, over 3 hours, that they go through and show how this stilometric methods used by Wingo and his co-author were wrong, and how if you do them more, if you put in the data differently, you can get more accurate results. Ultimately, they all argue that the conclusion is the same. All of these are mythicists and believe through different pathways and methods that Jesus never existed or likely never existed, and more than likely is a result of first and second century oral traditions. But you have there Richard Carrier in the glasses, who is a PhD and has written a lot on this history, and Dr. Aaron Adair in the middle there, who is a physicist, but also has written a lot on this history. And they offer a mythicist critique of the flawed methods of another mythicist. So all to make the same or similar argument around the unreality of Jesus. But I wanted to at least acknowledge that I at least acknowledge a book that I was promoting has come up against some heavy criticism. And then when I went to one of the lives of the co-author Jaron Wingo to ask if he had seen this and if he was going to respond, his mods jumped on me in the chat, and I was like, look, I'm not attacking anybody, I'm just asking if they saw this. And I got attacked. So there was like this beef in the mythicist community, and I was like, I don't need another set of beefs. And again, today we only got all the smoke is Go smoke. So that's one error. The other error, and I somewhat corrected this on episode 137 of Saturdays with Renee, but I did want to come back here and just clarify. So a little while ago, and on some level, I'm embarrassed. On some level, I'm a little sad about this, but I had made the point that I was talking about my time and work with Glenn Ford of Black Agenda Report, the late, great Glenn Ford, and how we are both very fair-skinned. And then someone had made in the comments a point to joke about us both being mixed. And I had said what I believed I remembered and always understood, which was that, and I was trying to be fair to say, Glenn was just fair-skinned. He was not mixed. And I was wrong. So apparently all these years and all the time that we interacted and in some ways, like, in close proximity, somehow he either never told me that or I forgot and focused maybe more on his father, knowing his father was Black. And just assumed that he was not, and wanted to be fair to him to say, look, I don't want to put the mixed on you if you just fair skinned. But apparently he was, and he had given an interview with the Real News Network in 2015 where he apparently talked about that with Paul J. But because I don't like Paul and I don't mess with the Real News Network, I was like, I'm not watching it, and I wouldn't have watched it back then either. Even though, and that's wild too, because let's just be real. Paul J, when he was running the Real News Network, so I forgot exactly how Paul and I met, but I forgot exactly how we met. But I remember after we met with him, I remember my wife and I went and met with him and his partner at the time. I believe they're still together. And I'm forgetting exactly how this all happened, but it became clear to me that he needed entree into the Black political world and he didn't know anybody. And this is how I ended up with the meeting. And I was like, I don't want to play that role. So I said, I remember saying to him at the time, you're probably looking for Bill Fletcher. No disrespect to Bill Fletcher, but I was like, Bill is more, I think, the type that you're looking for politically, more in your lane. And I remembered that when I initially mentioned to Paul and when I later ended up taking my sabbatical at the Real News Network, and it wasn't really a sabbatical, and I'll probably, if I haven't already, I'll come back and tell that story another time. That was some fugazi nonsense. But I ended up working at the Real News in 2015, and one thing I remember is that Paul misunderstood. He underestimated he thought my salary was way more than it was, and he was like, "I don't know if we can cover the rest of your salary. You got to be making." And I was like, "Yeah, let me show you what my check is, homeboy." And he was like, "Damn." He was like, "I make more." He was like, "We all make more than." I was like, "Yeah, of course you do." I was like, "I'm an HBCU professor, bro." But when I started working there, and he had this little Black, he was trying to develop this little Black collective that he wanted me to work with. But I remember I said to him, there were two people. I said, you should get Glenn Ford. I skipped some time. So initially I said, you should work with Bill. He then presented himself, that is, Paul presented himself as more radical and wanting, so I said, look, you should interview Glenn or do something, And initially he was like, no, Glenn, he's like, oh, Black Agenda Report. It's not, the analysis isn't right enough. It's not materialist enough. It's too much race. It was that kind of response. And he said the same thing about Rosa Clemente too, because I was saying, you should bring her into this, and he was like, no. And then I don't know exactly what happened, but he was like, no, no, Glenn works. Like, they put me in, and then I set up this thing so Glenn and he could have this ongoing Glenn would do like a recurring appearance on my show when they had something to promote on my segment on Real News. And then he and Paul had evolved their own thing. And then Paul sort of put Glenn on I think he even put him on the board. So like when I was there, it was like, there was like Marshall Eddie Conway and Glenn Ford. And who was the other one that he had? People like, I think Danny Glover, but he had like the elite level. And then I and everybody else were like somewhere we're down a few steps. And but I remember even when they did that, I didn't watch any of those interviews. And when someone sent me this interview showing how Glenn did sit down and talk to Paul about being mixed, I didn't watch it. I was like, okay, but I didn't know. I just didn't know. So I was wrong about that. And I, again, am somewhat embarrassed. I feel like I should have known this. And then I'm also kind of sad that I feel like maybe we should have talked more about our similar backgrounds and how we both ended up with very similar politics, doing very similar work, both as white mom biracials, like at the bottom of we're the worst of the worst, and yet doing this similarly good work together. So I don't know. And the other correction that I needed to make is that I misread the numbers in the page numbers in the side when I recently referenced the War article, that the psychological warfare document that Laura Sheeha cites in her book, From the Clinic to the Streets. I keep calling it Psychic Militancy. That's the name of her show. The book is From the Clinic to the Streets. But where she references the least of evils thing it's not on the, somehow I said the page numbers wrong, and I did want to correct that. So the page numbering, I had said 2 to 27, like pages 2 to 27, and that's not it. It's like section 2, 27. And then the next page is section 2, 28. So the page reference, I just wanted to be clear, where least of evils and the glittering generalities come from is section 2, page 27. And I will put the link to this in the show description as well, because I think we all need to. But again, you should get From the Clinic to the Streets, and then you can always just go quickly to page 42. And we got to get good with this as we get closer to elections, so that we can always go boom, page 42, and then you can go to the footnotes, and this is the document she's referencing, and we'll have the links ready, so you can always just quickly be like, see, don't tell me not to vote for this or that party or to advocate for some alternative, because the least of evils is a psychological warfare attack. All right, what time is it? Man, so I've gone a little long here today. All right, let's do one more. Actually, let's do two more. Let's just get this. Let's just clear the dockets while I'm here. Let's just do two more. And then again, make sure you like, share, subscribe, support the platform however you like, and then check the show description for the emails to use to support Dhoruba. All money earned on this video will go to Dhoruba via whether it's AdSense or whether it's through these wonderful super chats. I'd like to hear you and Irami or say Frimpong build on what the future looks like as a self-determined people and what getting there looks like. So thank you for the super chat. I haven't heard from Irami in years. So I'm actually curious to know what his response to your request would be. The last time I saw Irami and I called him out, by which I mean I politely on Twitter responded to something he had done at the time on Breaking Points with Crystal Ball, where he seemed to be taking my buying power argument and running with it without crediting it and acknowledging that, of course, he knew me and knew where he was getting it from. So I said something in response to their exchange on to whatever they had posted on Twitter at the time. I said, you know, Irami knows where he got this from, and if you ever want to know and have a real conversation, you know, I'm right here. Something to that effect. And I never heard back from either one of them. So, you know, I'm not saying I'm not down to build with him. I'm just saying, and again, it don't take much to say, as Jared Ball shows in his work, blah, 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 blah. And then you could talk for hours about your thoughts on buying power and not ever say my name again. And that's all you need to do. That's all you need to do. A quick, and that was my point at the time. Stop acting like you came up with this and are running with this as if you haven't read my work or talked to me. As Jared Ball has said, do, or he is shown, do. And then you could even say, now I'm going to do something better than what he did with it. I'm going to make his argument better, or I'm going to show where he's wrong and show where he could have. That's all you got to do. But don't do that. Don't sit up there and be like, let me tell you about black buying power. Thank you very much, Kyle Johnson, for your support to Dhoruba. Again, though, Soul Mega did make a good point. We'll get him his money through here, but send it to him directly so YouTube doesn't get a cut. That was a good point that Soul Mega made, and thank you for that. So, all right, so let's was that? Yeah, those are all. Yeah, those are the errors. Those are all my. Okay, those are the only errors I've ever made, and I've now corrected them. So we can now proceed. I've never made not one other mistake. All right, I watched this one. I did see this one already. It's wild and it's a mess and shouldn't take too long.
Here's financial flex.
My last name.
What's your last name?
Churchill. My family owns this place.
That's my benefit from the GT.
My great-grandfather started $1 billion company. It affects over 50% of human population.
We're closing in on a $4 billion transaction.
My dad actually owns one of the largest peanut butter companies in the world. Also have 3 horses in the Kentucky Derby.
I bought 1,400 shares of Tesla when it IPO'd, and I'll leave it at that.
Diamond studded. The matching chain and bracelet, 180.
I won't have to work until ever. I'm set for life. My dad put $1 million into Tesla when I was young.
How much is it worth now?
About $50 million.
Great-grandfather started Delaware Telephone Company and eventually became Verizon. I still have the stock at Verizon. I grew up in Brazil. Neymar was actually my neighbor.
I have multiple $1 million mansions in Alaska.
Why Alaska?
It's the last frontier. I own one of the most prestigious golf courses in the United States. It's $1 million initiation fee. It's Blue Cut National. Dad has a Gulfstream 700. It's like 70 mil. My grandparents are from the slums of India. Now I go to the best engineering college in the country.
My dad, he built money out of nothing. I wouldn't be shit without my dad. They made 30 plus family members reach financial freedom.
This video exposed the biggest lies that modern culture tells people. If you notice, every flex came from a father, grandfather, or family structure. And it's because there is no wealth without family structure. Modern culture really wants you to believe that you could do everything on your own, that you don't need a family, that you could delay children. You just need to focus on yourself and somehow you'll be able to build wealth. And that's one of the biggest lies most people ever been told.
So remember when I said that all these nonsensical claims start with some foundation of reality? Yeah, you can't do this by yourself. And but then he leaves reality almost immediately and misses the point. These people aren't reflective of a good, sound family structure. They are reflective of previously accumulated wealth. And in the examples of the last few Indians, they are examples of the basically lottery winning neo-colonial capitalist imperialist loophole. There's always going to be a handful of people that quote unquote make it. But all those white folks, they weren't talking about sound family structures. They were talking about, if they were referencing their parents, they were referencing an already unequal accumulated imbalance. So somebody said their father bought $1 million worth of stock in Tesla when they IPO'd at their initial public offering. I have a very sound family structure. My children have grown up in a very sound family structure. None of us are in position to do something similar in 2026. In other words, what families have $1 million just to invest in Tesla? So this is nonsense about a family structure and when not to have children and when and all this and whatever. That one kid just said, I'm a Churchill. I was born into the, again, he just was born. It wasn't that he was born in some meticulously planned moment that the family mapped out years in advance and preparation. No, he was just born into his family that had already accumulated wealth because it had already access to opportunities in the past that only a handful of even whites would have had an opportunity to access.
But the reason this lie is so prevalent because the powers that be, they understand that the less families that are being created, the less competition that they have for power. The less family structures being built, the more individual consumers they'll have in the market. The internet keeps selling this hyper-individualistic fantasy where everyone is supposed to move solo and think alone, stand alone, build alone. But no one has ever built wealth that way. If you understand and you research the history of wealth, you will understand that it's always been about controlling resources, controlling land, and having family structure so you could be self-governed.
So but he keeps focusing on this family structure nonsense and ignoring the other stuff he just accurately mentioned. And again, if you look at the history of these families, these are not sound family structures. Whenever I've read about Carl Icahn and the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, these are disturbed families. These are abusive. Go watch Born Rich. You can watch the kids. You can watch these kids are traumatized. They, as soon as they walked off those interviews, talking proudly about what they would have given another interview as they did in Born Rich to say, I'm constantly terrified I'm going to get cut off. I'm constantly terrified that I'm going to do the one thing that my father is going to cut me, or I'm going to get cut off from my inheritance. And they're all abusing drugs and each other. And I mean, it's like, these are not sound families. This is not, but it works because again, the legitimate critical foundation of you can't do this by yourself and the lies that we're told through media about individualism and consumption, all of that it's a good bait. But he's using that base to build towards something, to an argument completely uncritical of capital, of settler colonialism, of whiteness, of any of the and wants to leave it as we just got to be better with our families.
It was never about these materialistic ideals that we see today, where it's all about having the cars, the house, the designer clothes, the jewelry. Now, those things can be a byproduct of wealth, but that is not the core of what wealth is. Real wealth is family structure being built together, investing together, putting each other in position, passing business down, passing stocks down, passing relationships down, passing the game down. And you cannot do those things if you're not building a family. So many people these days have completely removed themselves from the wealth game simply because they're not doing these things. Excuse me.
So that's that, and there it was. So they could be wealthy, but they're not doing family correctly. And I don't know if he's going to get there. I don't remember if maybe I didn't even see the whole thing. So I don't know if this is going to descend into some sort of black version of the nuclear nuclear family argument, which would argue then, of course, that single parenting, and it's like the Black Moynihan report. If you're a single parent, or if you're in a same-sex relationship, or if you just don't have children, or if you just choose to be on your own, a permanent bachelor or whatever, that's what prevents you from being wealthy. It has nothing to do with any of it.
use my language, but we in a fuck them kids era. Without realizing that mindset is just shooting yourself in the foot in the end. That's why I always laugh when people act like family structure and marriage is these old school, outdated concepts. The wealthiest families understand that these concepts are still extremely necessary in order to build wealth. Because
none of those kids, well, I don't know, but most of those kids at the beginning of this video, I bet were not married. They were just they just inherited wealth. So what did they do regarding this concern for family structure to build? The myth is already being exposed in the clip he's responding to. These kids didn't create a family and do this and whatever. They are benefiting from what was done by their families at a time when his family, even today, could never have done it.
Or the average person today is being taught to move like an individual. Wealthiest families in the world understand that you have to move as a team. So you can chase career, get the nicest cars.
But the team they're moving in is not as a family, it's as a class.
Get the nicest home, wear the flyest clothes, travel all over the world. But if you're not building family structure, you are not building wealth. You are just renting the lifestyle.
What's your biggest?
I don't know. The only way out of this is some sort of collective struggle that redistributes the wealth and doesn't allow for it to be accumulated in anybody's hands. The fantasy he ignores is and the mythology he ignores is that anyone can become that wealthy if they just do this, that, and the third. And that's just not it. And this suggestion that black families or black people don't care about family in some sort of super special way leading to this level of inequality is just ridiculous. But yeah, I do encourage, the part of that I encourage, study the history of these wealthy families and how they accumulated their wealth. And I think that he has not done that. Otherwise, he would see that he's contradicting it, because that's not how they don't care about family in the way that he's promoting. To the extent that they care about family, they do care about it as a business model, where weddings are business relationships, and you have children to keep money within a certain family. But I don't want that kind. I don't want to have kids just so I can pass wealth to them. And protect it from going to anyone else like the rest of society who've worked to produce that wealth for me. All right, one more shorter video I was asked to look at, and I don't think I finished it though. But
how you feeling, Tef? I'm chilling, man.
Y'all remember Tef? Do y'all know TefPoe? I have one interview years ago with TefPoe, who came to fame as a rapper after the Ferguson uprisings, and linked up here with Talib on Let Me Ask You This. I guess is this their new platform? Is JayZ caping for capitalism?
They were calling me most Tef because
most Tef because oh my God, I'm so glad nothing was in my mouth. Okay, let's stop. Okay, most Tef.
Yeah,
Federico came up with that one.
Full BlackStar going.
Yeah, and I do want that. Now show them what you got on though. Show them what you got on.
I got the exclusive hotness on. You know what I'm saying?
Donna, where's Donna at? We need to what's the name of the website? I don't know the name of the BlackStar website.
I got the hotness.
Man, I actually am guilty of this. I haven't listened to the new. You know what? I haven't even heard the last BlackStar album because they put it on that platform that I didn't. And I kind of, I don't know. I go back and forth whether they were right or wrong about that, but I feel a little guilty about that. I should have listened to it. And have you all heard the last one they put out?
More akin to bartering and trading.
All right, hold on, let me get to the.
Oh yeah, because. Anyway, it's important for us as artists to have merch. Oh yeah, because what we do is more akin to bartering and trading than it is like straight up capitalism. Yeah. A lot of artists like to declare themselves as anti-capitalist, but we live in a capitalist system, and by our very nature, we engage in capitalism and participate in it. And you don't have to worship it though. Yeah, you don't have to worship it, and you can actively.
So, but bartering is not capitalism. And I don't agree that by our very nature, and maybe does he mean by artists selling merch that they engage in capital? I don't agree that that is what capitalism is, or how it should be defined? Artists selling merch or bartering. But
the same way that if you live in a white supremacist society, in a society where white supremacist systems are the status quo, you can actively push back against that.
Well, that's America. So we've all grown up in that place. And so and becoming independent artists and doing what we love is the pushback. It's part of it anyway.
This conversation around art and capitalism got me thinking about JayZ a lot. You know, because as a rapper from Brooklyn, he's an icon. And he is someone who people forget that Rockefeller Records was independent Black-owned business. People look at JayZ as this like big sort of symbol for billionaires and capitalism in Hollywood and being famous in this generation. I saw a tape, not a tape, look at how old I am now.
You know what this is, though. You know what Talib's problem really is, though, right? With this attempt at justifying JayZ with this Black-owned business, you know. You know it's because JayZ had that line where he said, "I wish I could rhyme like TalibKweli, or if I could, I'd rhyme like TalibKweli," something like that. And Talib be like, "Yeah, I got a shout out from JayZ."
Our video on the internet of a young girl, young Black girl, talking about nobody cared what JayZ got to say because he's old and washed. And then somebody, an older Black dude was checking her. He was like, "That's what I can't stand about what we do as Black people, because white people would never say that about a country legend or rock and roll legend. Nobody cares about what they say because they old and washed."
They would if he's saying something old and washed, like I'm a capitalist and I'm a superhero because of it. What is that? Because something tells me that's more of the context than he's just old. Like if I constantly am around youngins calling me respectfully Unc, I don't think it's an automatic Black people don't like old Black people. I think it's a young Black person saying he's over here trying to bring Bitcoin classes to the hood and talking about it's good that I'm a capitalist. That's old and washed.
That we do, that we are indoctrinated to do.
And he's not even old.
Yeah, but I mean, if you 19 years old,
I guess.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Remember when JayZ was battling with Nas? And one of the disses that had everybody loving Ether, which people said was a victory for Nas.
Was you 48 in the karate?
He said
class?
36, bro. He didn't even say 48.
36 was old.
You're now that you older than 36, your mind is making you think he said 48. Bro, he said you 36 in a karate class. So he clowned him on being 36, which means Nas had to be in his 20s at that time. And he clowned him on trying to make his life better by having health and wellness and being in a karate class. Like, nigga, what kind of shit is that? Are you so old that you gotta take karate to feel better?
Right.
That was like a diss. And now that sound like the right thing for a 36-year-old
Called him a Taibo ho.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, Taekwondo, everything.
Yeah.
Billy Banks was no ho. Billy Banks,
I think that
real deal.
With that and with the criticism around capitalism and JayZ's name, because we just put out a clip with Coltrane and he was talking about the GQ interview with JayZ, and we were talking about how much we enjoyed it. But you know, you get pushback online whenever you talk about JayZ in this space.
Well, because he's right.
Because people are like, there's a large contingent of people online who claim, I say online because I don't really see it in the real world. People in the real world is too busy surviving to be staunch anti-capitalist. But online, you see people be like, you know, death to the oligarchy, and I'm gonna break out the guillotine, and like you motherfuckers is not ready to behead anybody. You know what I'm saying? But they be online talking about eat the rich, and these are sentiments that I resonate with and relate to. But the rhetoric I don't see matching with the actions, and then I think the rhetoric should be tempered. We're talking about.
So wait a minute. The rhetoric should be tempered, or people should match their actions to the rhetoric. So if people start actually building the guillotines and dragging the rich out to the town square, Talib's gonna be down with that? Is that what he's saying? Is that what he's really saying?
Black capitalism and Black people trying to get money. You know what I'm saying? Because like with all the critiques we have of capitalism and all the critiques we have of someone who's a billionaire like a JayZ or someone, I think as a culture, we have to.
And you know what? Let me be fair. So I said Talib is I made the joke about Talib doing this because JayZ shouted him out and said, if I could rhyme like him, you know what about? And I'm only calling out Talib because he had Tory Russell on his show last year or 2 years ago, whatever that was, saying how wrong Jared Ball is, and 2025 is going to be the year that we end Jared Ball's argument and all this stuff. So that's so Talib, you didn't invite me to the discussion after my name got called out. So I took a clip that somebody sent me and I'm hating on it just for that.
Hold ourselves more accountable for what I'll call their confusion around capitalism and what it is. JayZ identifies as...
We're confused. The critics of JayZ are confused about capitalism, but JayZ and what he said in that interview was clear. That's incorrect.
A capitalist, right? He said that in the interview, right? Which, you know, make a lot of people who are anti-capitalist upset. But why does someone who started out as an independent Black businessman, who started out poor, from a very poor, destitute situation, who leveled himself up to become a billionaire, how does his lens become so cloudy that he doesn't understand? He doesn't seem to understand what it seems like he doesn't understand what the criticism is of him. And are we showing him enough grace?
I think he understands.
Let me let him see.
That's why I just switched my language.
Yeah,
I said it seems that he doesn't understand. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because he said...
No, he gets it. And it's not even that deep. He took advantage of a particular skill set and a time and an ability and a limited lane and made a bunch of money doing what I said a while ago has to be done in the example of DrDre. Make wealth for the ruling elite, you will be rewarded. And in rare cases, you'll be rewarded to the tune of billionaire status. But to people who are anti-capitalist, who are not benefiting and who are suffering worsening conditions, are right to be critical, not just that you did that, but then that you come back to say you were right to do that and that the system is right to exist and that you taking advantage of it is also correct. That's what people are upset about. And yes, JayZ understands exactly what is happening and is making a willful choice, as is, I think, Talib, who I think does know better, but wants to have somehow one foot in the industry door and one foot in connection to JayZ. And especially now that JayZ just freestyle battled against everybody at the Roots picnic, nobody wants that. He doesn't want that smoke.
His language in the interview was, all of a sudden they're bringing up this new word, capitalist. Maybe he's being tongue-in-cheek when he said that.
Yeah.
I was
I
wondering
don't know. Yeah.
how much of, and maybe you know, both of y'all can answer this. When we see stuff like that in the media, that is an obvious kind of cleanup job to what the public's conversation is. Like you could tell, I've been through media training enough to know when certain things are conjured up talking points. When they say this, you say this.
Yep.
When they're starting to say this, so this is how we're going to meet it.
Yeah.
How much of his personality that we're seeing in response to this is his real personality versus it being them understanding that there's a generation gap that's building between him and a growing population of people, and they trying to find talking points to deal with it.
It's not a generation gap, it's a class gap.
Yeah, so I don't know him in real life, so I don't really talk about people. That's like, I mean, Talib knows him in real life. I don't know him, but I do know.
I can't say that I know him. I can say that we've met a few times, and there's been statements of public mutual respect.
But
I absolutely respect him. I think he respects me, but that's not someone who I got in my phone that I can get on the phone. Like that.
Right. Yeah. So friend. The criticism, I think, we're in Brooklyn and the Barclays Center is a part of the criticism.
Right. And it's a conversation around culture. He's a symbol of something, right?
Why'd you cut her off though? Why'd he jump in right there? Because he helped bring the Barclays Center in and gentrified Brooklyn, where you all are currently sitting. In what may be like the last Black resident on the block. Come on.
It's not about JayZ. It's about what someone who has accumulated his wealth, who comes from the hood, symbolizes.
Yeah, but also, I mean, in the Barclay deal, though, they really pushed him forward. He wasn't even like, such a small part of the ownership of Barclays, but
he said he did the same thing. What's his name? Who was the other one that did it recently? If I own 1%, it's black owned. Who said that? Was it Boyce? But JayZ did the kind of same thing.
Really used him in that way, in my opinion, to push him on the community to say, hey, it's cool. We're going to build this. I know we're going to knock some things down. We're going to go, build some things in your community.
Yeah.
People are really upset. I mean, I don't, this is in my borough, but I love this borough. And I remember some of the people I love really did not want that stadium to be built. And they did use JayZ to kind of temper. They use him for the community, because if you love Brooklyn, you might love JayZ. You might love Biggie. So you're going to look at them and say, okay, well, they're doing this, but maybe it's not so bad. And so that's where I think it gets, where the criticism comes in, is like, who is he working for us? And just because somebody's black and rich, does that mean that they're our ally in that space? Even if you like his music, I don't know him in that space. I don't know him as a business person. Exactly. I like some songs he made.
Right.
That's
I was looking for like JayZ was mentioned in the Epstein files.
Yeah.
And in the emails, he was mentioned a couple times, but he was mentioned by an anonymous tip to the FBI, which was, largely deemed very uncredible. But he was also mentioned in the email by one of these business partners of Epstein. And I was looking for the exact email, but I can't find it right now. The exact language.
Right.
But essentially, to paraphrase, the guy was saying JayZ, as the face of Barclays, really helped the situation.
Oh yeah,
just the same thing that you just said.
Of course. Yeah. But he's not in Epstein files like as a pedophile.
No, not at all.
You know
not
in
any way.
He went to a party,
shape, or form, and he didn't even go to a party. The shit they talk about is 94. He wouldn't have been at no party in 94.
Yeah.
That's
it's
true.
not. It's not.
That's true.
The timeline is off.
Yeah.
But I'm just talking about. The only reason I mentioned it is because of what you just said. As far as Barclays, he was mentioned in an email by someone else talking about him in relationship to how his deal with Barclays impacted the neighborhood in which he came from.
Yeah, I mean, and the people in the neighborhood felt a lot of different ways about that being built. You know what I'm saying?
So, and that's the point. Oh wow! And the track that they play is which side are you on? But that's the thing, though. They left out, and I covered it here, so I'll just bring it back up. This is the email they're talking about, where Jess Staley writes, you want to know why we are not Sao Paulo, meaning why we are not experiencing the uprisings that were taking place then in Brazil. Watch the TV ads on the Super Bowl. It's all about hip blacks and hip cars with white women. The group that should be in the streets has been bought off by JayZ. And the problem that I'm having with that Talib clip is that that explains why people are frustrated with JayZ promoting himself in the way that he is, without acknowledging that, yeah, you individually did quite well, made a whole bunch of money, but you are part of the problem that allows the Jess Staleys and the Epsteins of the world to exist and to have cover while you promote Super Bowl performances and your own position as a so-called owner. Remember, because again, he said, we're past kneeling in the Colin Kaepernick thing. We're moving into ownership. That's why there has been this pushback. It's not a generation thing. It's not that young people are just mad at old black people. It's that they are appropriately angry at people who are representing a class interest and the interests ultimately of a white ruling elite, while promoting themselves as black business people, entrepreneurs, celebrity, concerned members of the community, et cetera, and so forth. So that's why. All right. So look, that's going to do it for today. We're gonna get into a little bit more smoke, but then I'm gonna wrap it for today. And I definitely appreciate everybody coming through and hanging out this morning a little bit. I definitely want to again encourage folks to support Dhoruba by checking the emails in the show description and using them to Zelle or PayPal him, whatever you can. No, thank you all very much. and appreciate that. And yeah, and let's see what we can do to help Dhoruba out. And later today, I'll have the links up to all the stuff I've been talking about today. Do what you can to support the platform and the ones that we are all in association with. And again, of course, Dhoruba himself. And let's get into a little bit more smoke. Everybody, again, peace only if you're willing to fight for it, as Fred Hampton used to say. Much appreciation to everybody for coming through. And as I said, everybody gets smoked today. Email in the show description for the Zelle option. He did. Remember, he was on the JayZ was on Rare Essence's label when he did 6 in the morning, the Pancake House. He got that from Rare Essence. Absolutely.
And what did you sacrifice? Calm, kindness, kinship, love. I've given up all chance at inner peace. I made my mind a sunless space. I share my dreams with ghosts. I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago for which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight, that set me on a path from which there's no escape. I yearn to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost, and by the time I look down, there's no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. Now, the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything, 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 everything.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.